My name is William Maitland. I am 42 years old. I came close to losing my life a few days ago, almost lost my career a few weeks ago, and a month ago, I lost the second woman I've ever loved. 6 months ago, I watched my marriage and family crumble in front of me. Somehow, during these chaotic months, I've gained a new nickname and unexpected international attention. I've even rebuilt some broken family ties thanks to the selfless actions of a man who tried to make the world a better place. I've faced off with the man who took my wife from me. And despite the bruises, I walked away stronger. The truth is, everything I thought I knew has been turned upside down. And now I'm caught between the promises of allies I never imagined having and enemies I never expected to face. It's been a strange 6 months, and I'm not sure what's coming next. October 2nd, 2005, Sunday, 10:35 p.m. I gazed out at the bright lights of the New York skyline and had to remind myself that I was really there. I was 60 stories up, in a nice suite, all paid for by CBS. I held a glass of champagne, not really knowing much about it since I wasn't a big fan. I lifted the glass to my nose and felt the bubbles gently tickle. The lovely blonde behind me tapped my shoulder, and I caught our reflections in the window. "It's amazing, isn't it?" I nodded in agreement. I love Jacksonville, and I'm a Florida guy, but I have to say, this view is something special. I understand, Bill. It's why so many people strive to make it here. There's nothing quite like it anywhere else. I turned slightly to look up into the bright blue eyes of celestial Madonna, now Jane to me as I was Bill to her. Actually, I might have had a chance like this, but I declined. She looked at me with curiosity. A few months ago, before I took on my new role, an attorney offered me a job at a firm with offices across the country, including New York. You said no? I looked back out at the night sky, saying, he reached out the same day my wife told me she wanted a divorce. I was feeling a bit lost and wasn't ready for any big changes. She placed a gentle hand on my arm. That sounds tough. I've been divorced twice. The first time, we drifted apart. In the end, we were just two friends sharing a space. But the second time was much harder. I've heard it was a challenging time for you. That sounds about right. It really shook my confidence. She softly ran her hand up and down my arm. I had dressed for the 60 Minutes interview in my usual black attire, this time wearing a tuxedo with a black shirt and dress pants. After the interview, Jane took me to a restaurant I had never been to before. It was a small, unassuming place, but it served the best French food I had ever tasted, both here and in Paris. I had agreed to do a series of interviews for CBS and other networks, and Jane took the lead in showing me around the city and helping me get from one interview to another. Her bosses allowed this because they thought our connection would benefit their investment in the long run. It was easy to forget that she was known for her serious reporting on celebrity lives. She was funny, charming, and did not seem to realize how captivating she was. Away from her formal work attire, she had an impressive presence. This was the real Jane from Pahokee. You've bounced back well, Bill. I bet your ex is having second thoughts. No, she found someone new, a younger man, and then an older man who turned out to be kind. I didn't hold a grudge against him even when I wanted to. She might feel some regrets considering we were together for 20 years, but trust me, she has some regrets. I looked at her and couldn't help but smile. It's all right, Jane. You don't need to keep trying. You've gathered most of the material you need, and before I leave the city, you'll have some great footage. She moved closer until our faces were nearly touching. I'm not trying to get something for the show, Bill Maitland. Then what are you doing? I'm interested in you. In an unexpected moment, she leaned in and we shared a gentle kiss that grew more meaningful. I pulled back and asked, Are you sure this is a good idea? I think it's a great idea. She lowered herself with grace, continuing to connect with me. I looked down, surprised that the woman I had seen on television was here, sharing this moment. She paused a bit and smiled. I've wanted to share this chemistry since that day in the courthouse. There was something about it that drew me in. A gentleman never tells. She smiled knowingly, clearly enjoying the moment. Do you feel the connection now? I knelt beside her, appreciating the energy we shared. "The dresser," she said, pointing to a piece of furniture near the entrance. I walked over and opened it, finding what I needed. "I see you were prepared for this," I noted, impressed. "Ever since you arrived in town." "I'm not the largest guy around." She reached down and gave my arm a gentle touch. "Big enough." I prepared myself and knelt near her, feeling a warm sense of closeness. "You are quite captivating." I found myself lost in the moment, the time passing unnoticed. Later, as we sat together, I felt a new and exciting closeness. It was a strange feeling, seeing her as the television star while enjoying our time together. It felt surreal, yet the connection was unmistakably real. Later, she rested against me and I held her close, appreciating the feeling of being together. "I still can't quite believe this." "Believe it, Mr. Maitland. This is all real, and what we shared just moments ago was very real." I kissed her gently and said, "I could never have imagined this 6 months or a year ago." She turned to me with a smile. "It's only been 6 months, Bill." It didn't feel real for me for a while after my last relationship ended. I sometimes felt a quick wave of guilt, even if it caught me off guard. "It took you a year? To stop feeling guilty?" "No, around 6 months." She leaned back, thinking. "I know it might seem like a long time since you were single, Bill, but we were all single before we got married. Life goes on outside of those commitments. Most of us are quite happy most of the time. Just relax a bit. Enjoy yourself, and if things are meant to change, they will." That morning, I woke up with her close to me, her pleasant scent filling the air. I suddenly understood where I was and who I was with. For the first time, besides the nights I spent with Aline, I didn't feel like I had woken up to a bad dream, lost and alone. October 5th, 2005, Wednesday noon. They say bad things happen in threes. I stood behind a window in the second row of mourners. We stood quietly as the police honor guard fired their rifles into the clear blue sky. She and her daughter wore black. It seemed like half the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office was there. I caught some hard stares when people thought I wasn't looking. Some just kept staring at me when I noticed them. Sheriff Knight stood in the front row. He looked at me as I walked into the church filled with blue uniforms. I met his gaze. I understood how he felt, but I knew my actions had led to James's death. The least I could do was come to his funeral. I had driven myself to Evergreen Cemetery on 45th Street. Traffic was blocked for miles as the funeral procession moved to the cemetery. I had to walk nearly half a mile, and I was hot and sweaty when I reached the burial site. There were chairs for nearly 100 people, but around 400 stood. I moved through the crowd of police officers, and they stepped aside as I walked among them. When I reached the row of seats right behind Alexis James, I noticed the officer behind her. He chose to get up and move away, even though he didn't have to. I took the empty seat behind him and gently tapped Alexis on the shoulder. I hadn't seen her since that day in James's hospital room. He had put up a brave fight, but it took him another 4 days before he passed away. Alexis looked like she had aged 10 years in that time. "Mrs. James, I'm really sorry I was away when your husband passed. I didn't want to talk over the phone. I couldn't return any sooner, but I wanted to share my sympathy in person. He was a good man." She looked at me. Her eyes were red but dry, as if she had run out of tears. She still didn't reply, but the young girl next to her started to cry and said, You. "No, Kanisha, no," Alexis exclaimed as she looked from her daughter to me. "She's young, Mr. Maitland, and this is hard for her. Please forgive her. She's still so young, and I realized then that she still had some tears left. Knight stood next to her and put his arm around her. He sat down and held her close during the funeral. She didn't look back at me again. Neither did he. As I sat there listening to the minister, my mind drifted back to the previous Thursday. It seemed like the same group of officers had gathered around Hauser's wife, daughter, and son. His son was in a ranger uniform, still in his clothes from arriving home from Afghanistan via Jacksonville Naval Air Station. Hauser's parents had flown in from Michigan, and he had a brother and sister who came from Alabama and California, each with their children. I had purposely arrived late at Oaklawn Cemetery on San Jose Boulevard, but the police recognized me. as did the photographers from television and newspapers who captured my image. The funeral was held under a cloudy sky that looked like it might rain at any moment. The sad feeling in the air seemed more suited for a farewell than a day that could have been spent at the beach. It was a warm October day in Jacksonville, unusual for this time of year. On Thursday, I waited until the minister finished speaking, the police group paid their respects, and Hauser's friends said goodbye to his wife. Knight simply nodded at me. I could tell it would take time for him to move on from the tough feelings he held against me. Soon, only the news crews in the distance, the photographers, Hauser's family, a few police officers, and I remained. I approached Mrs. Hauser, who reached out her hand. Her son and daughter looked at me with expressions I couldn't understand. I could only imagine how they felt looking at the person connected to their father's passing. "I'm glad you came, Mr. Maitland. I wanted Molly and Bert to meet you. I explained to them what happened and that their father admired you. I didn't want them to think poorly of you." Molly Hauser simply looked at me, shook her head with tears on her cheeks, and stepped away. Her mother quickly followed, wrapping her arms around her. Bert Hauser resembled his father, tall and thin, with a full head of sandy hair. He stood straight, hands behind his back, almost like he was on parade. His uniform was a bit wrinkled, but his shoes shone. "My mother told me about what happened, Mr. Maitland. Thank you for coming. Dad would have appreciated your presence." "He was a good man and a dedicated officer sergeant, right? Yes, if..." He paused and took a deep breath. "I'm a soldier, Mr. Maitland. I signed up knowing I might not come back. I have a fiancée and she knows the risks, but you don't expect to lose your father." He shook his head, looking off into the distance. He loved what he did. He felt a bit let down that I chose a military career, but he understood, and I understood him. I wouldn't share this with Mom, but if he had known his time was short, I think he would have preferred this ending to being sick for a long time. He looked down at the ground, thinking as he tapped his lip with his finger. The doctors found heart problems during the autopsy. In a few months, he might have started to notice signs, maybe even had an event. They would have reassigned him or put him aside. He would have hated that. I reached out my hand and he shook it without looking up. Turning away, I left him by the place where his father would be laid to rest. It hit me that at least he would have a grave to visit. I hadn't been back to the spot where my father was buried since I was 8, and I might never go again. I heard the clicking of cameras as I shook his hand, knowing they would publish something about this. As I walked away from James's funeral, the same clicks followed me. I knew the stories that would come. Maitland's deadly touch continues. People around me confronted their mortality, no matter who they were. At first it felt almost funny when I was called the Angel of Death, and people's reactions changed. But that humor faded long ago, and I started to question everything. Oh, and there was another troubling thing. A couple of hours after leaving Bert Hauser, I drove down the paved road leading to Old City Cemetery. This smaller cemetery was in the mostly black area of downtown Jacksonville. It looked nearly empty, except for the Channel 4 and Channel 12 news vans parked at the entrance. Camera crews stood outside their vehicles and watched me as I drove by, but I was already past them before they could focus on me. I followed a winding path until I saw a group of cars to the right. I parked my car and got out. A small group of about 30 people had gathered near an open grave where a casket was displayed, with a minister present. Among them was a petite woman with white hair, surrounded by 3 strong men. When one of them turned to look at me, I noticed he resembled Sean Smith, but older and heavier. The group shifted their focus to me as the first man who noticed walked toward me. "Please leave," he said, clearly upset, his fists tight. He was much larger than I was and seemed very angry. Another man next to the elderly woman stepped forward. "Eddie, please. Not here, not in front of Mom." "I'll make him go if he doesn't step away. Now." I raised my hands in a calming gesture, showing my palms. I knew the odds were not in my favor. He had a lot of size on me. Though I had some boxing training, I did not want to fight, especially since I understood his feelings. "Mr. Smith? You're Eddie Smith, Sean's older brother, right? And you're Carl, right?" Carl placed his hand on Eddie's shoulder and said, "Mr. Maitland, please leave. My brother is a good man, but today is hard for him, for all of us. Don't make it worse." Eddie shrugged off his brother's hand and stared at me. "Where are the photographers? Just looking for a chance to get more attention." "Angel of Death shows up at the killer cop's funeral. I bet the tabloids will love it." "There are no photographers, and I won't stay long if you give me just a couple of minutes. I planned to stay back until the service was over and talk with your mother if I could." "You need to stay away from her, from us. I'll do whatever it takes to protect her. You've caused us enough heartache already." "Edward!" A frail woman approached from behind him, leaning on a cane. Despite her small size, she had raised 4 strong sons. "Mom, go back. This is that person, Edward. I'm not one of your friends, and this is your brother's funeral. You must not speak like that today." She looked at me, her face showing the marks of time and struggle. "Mrs. Smith." "Mr. Maitland, why are you here?" "I came to offer my sympathies for your loss, Mrs. Smith." "You hypocrite! You got him killed, and you have the nerve to come here." "Edward, please show some respect for your brother. Mr. Maitland, you could have sent a card. Why did you feel the need to come in person?" "My sons are very upset. Sean was my baby, and they helped raise him after my husband passed when he was just a toddler." "I'm truly sorry to intrude on your sorrow, Mrs. Smith. I just wanted to express how sorry I am for what has happened. I never wanted it to end like this. I knew that Sean might face some difficulties, but some people come back from those situations. He could have built a new life and had many friends who would have welcomed him back." The quiet brother, Cyrus, joined us. "As what? A disgraced officer? How do you move on from that?" I tried to reason with him, but he thought it was the end of everything. When he lost Elise, it felt like he lost his way. I had a feeling he might act out, but I know he wouldn't have if you hadn't put so much pressure on him. I believed he needed to face the results of his choices, and I couldn't just stand by. "It's done now. It's over, Mr. Maitland. We'll bury my son and move on with our lives." "I appreciate you taking the time to talk with me." Eddie Smith said, "We'll continue with our lives as the family of the officer who harmed 3 people before being confronted by 2 of his fellow officers. That's what we'll tell his nieces and nephews when they come along. That's what we'll explain to them about my baby brother." I shook my head and reached out to take his mother's hand. She tensed, but stayed close. "No. Tell them that your brother, your son, Mrs. Smith, was a good and brave officer. He saved lives and served his community well. He earned awards and was liked by his colleagues. He dedicated 10 years to public service without any problems in his record. But then he made a choice that led to unfortunate results. Love can lead people to make surprising choices. He made a mistake that cost him his life, but how he died doesn't change how he lived. The public might remember him differently, but you can tell his nieces and nephews that he was a dedicated officer and a good person, with many records to prove that." As I walked back to my car, I knew they would likely never forgive me for my part in what happened to Sean, but they weren't responsible for his mistakes. They just had to carry the sadness of them forever. I hoped my words would help them, even a little, to remember the good things Sean Smith had done in his short life. I felt tired. Maybe it was finally coming to an end. However, I was unaware that James would pass away in the hospital within 36 hours. I would have one more funeral to attend before I could start trying to forget Sean Smith. I also knew that no matter how hard I tried, I never would. What happened at the hall had only taken moments, but the effects of those moments would change lives for years. The sad truth was that I had learned over the past decade that this was always the case. Times of trouble never end neatly, perhaps because life isn't like that. October 5th, 2005, Wednesday, 3 p.m. She worried she might be too late. By the time she found parking at Jacksonville International Airport, made her way to the departure terminal, and located the ticket counter for United, it was already 3 p.m. She knew that Clint was set to leave on a 5:30 flight and that he had mentioned needing to be at the airport by 3 at the latest. She looked around, trying to see him among the crowd. It felt silly, but even though they had said goodbye the night he talked about his trip to Africa, she sensed there was still so much left unsaid. Then he found her. She turned and saw him standing there with 2 suitcases at his feet. "You're really making this hard for me, aren't you?" he said with a smile. As they embraced, she felt the weight of the moment. Laughter and light applause from other travelers filled the air. After a moment, they stepped back, and she noticed a hint of moisture in his eyes. "Why are you doing this, Debbie? I know you don't love me. I'm your friend, and I never thought I was anything more. Have I been getting it all wrong?" She took his hand gently. "Can we talk? Do you have a few minutes?" He looked around before answering. "I probably have a few minutes. Let's find a coffee shop." They found a nearby cafe, and he ordered while she settled at the only available table. A little while later, he came back with their drinks. "This feels familiar." She took a sip, focusing on her drink to calm her nerves and avoid looking at him directly. "I'm glad you came, Debbie. I'm glad I got to say goodbye, but what was that moment about?" Gathering her courage, she looked into his eyes. He was just Clint. That thought gave her comfort, yet also made her nervous. "I know." She took a breath. "I understand that you said you don't love me. You've always been clear about that, and I never said I loved you either. We're friends, and I care about you a lot. You've become an important part of my life. Through everything, you've been by my side." He smiled, that familiar grin returning, and waved his hand casually. "Okay, Deb, but it hasn't been all bad. There are many guys who would have liked the chance to support you. It's not an easy job, but someone has to take it on." "I know, Clint, but all I offered was friendship, and you could have found that anywhere. You helped me stay focused." He reached out and took her hand. "You don't see your value, Deb. Remember what I said. There are those who would appreciate you, not just how you look, but also your kindness and warmth. If I could have cared for anyone after my past, it might have been you. But by the time I could have been ready, you might be back with Bill. Our timing was never right." "Why do you think that? Why won't you believe me when I say Bill and I will never be together again?" He smiled gently and brushed his finger along her cheek. "You might not understand how a man sees beauty. You can't think like a man, so you won't realize how we see someone like you as a true gem." "Why am I so sure you'll be back with Bill?" "Because you still care for him. I can see it in your face when his name comes up. You seem upset when it does. You don't get upset like that about someone you've moved on from." "I'm not going back because I don't want to. Our marriage ended badly, and I won't go back to that. Even if I wanted to, he wouldn't take me back. I can't explain it, but he's moved on. I won't say that writers have all the answers, but we understand human feelings well, and I'm good at reading people from my time as a newspaper reporter. He had feelings for you that night when I met him at your place. It was obvious." She took a sip of her drink and replied, not looking at him, "Maybe, but you didn't see him the night we met at his place." Maybe he did care about me, and I was naive enough to believe he always would, but now he has moved on. "He wouldn't be the first person to have feelings for more than one person," she replied. She focused back on her drink and added, "Even if you don't love me, I know you care a lot about me. If you think what we shared was special, please stay with me. Don't get on that flight. I promise you won't forget our time together. We could try new things together." He smiled at her. "I don't think anyone has ever said such nice things to me like you just did, Deb. If it was just about being together physically, I might stay. If I didn't know you had feelings for someone else, I would really think about being with you. I can only imagine how wonderful it would be to see you look at me the way you do when you hear his name. I bet it would be magical, but I can't really explain it, and I wish I could. I just feel like I need to do this, like it's something I have to do. It's like when I wrote my first book, which changed my life. I don't know what I will find in Africa, but I feel like I can't go on without discovering what's out there." Then she began to cry again, feeling upset. "I don't understand why I can't make you see, Clint. I have this terrible feeling that when you walk away to the boarding area, it will be the last time I ever see you. I'm scared you won't come back." That thought breaks my heart. "Bill is never coming back. Doug is gone for good, and now you are about to leave me, my husband, my friend. It feels like I'm losing it all." He moved closer to comfort her. "It may feel that way, but it's not true. You have your children, a good job, friends, and even your ex is working in the same building. He is okay, and I will return. Your intuition has not always been right." He lowered his arms and reached into his wallet. He sat quietly, not looking at her, and pulled a crumpled check from his pocket, placing it on the table. He gestured for her to take it. It was a check for $10,000 made out to her, with a folded piece of paper beside it. "What's this?" He kept his eyes on the table, avoiding her gaze. "I need to ask you for a favor, Deb. It's important, and I hope you won't be upset when I explain." "What kind of favor?" she asked, remembering their late-night talk and realizing what he was getting at. "I plan to come back, but life is unsure, and if I don't..." He took a final sip of his cappuccino. "I'd like you to deposit this into your account and hold it for me. If I don't return, this will help pay for a memorial for her. I want you to make sure it goes on her grave. It's in Palatka Memorial Garden Cemetery. Right now, there's just a small marker." He pulled out an old photograph from his wallet, worn but well kept. The woman in the photo had long, dark hair and sat on a tree trunk with a courthouse in the background. "I've kept this for 25 years, he said, his voice filled with feeling. "It's the last picture I have of her when she still cared for me." He gently touched the image. "You can see her beauty. She left this world too soon. She was only 24. He focused on the photo, and Debbie could tell he was lost in a memory that was just theirs. He took a deep breath. "I should have done this much earlier. She was an only child, and her parents are gone. My parents passed away years ago, and my brother hardly knew her. He lives in Canada. Our friends have all drifted apart." He looked up and met Debbie's eyes. She wondered if any man would ever look at her the way he was looking at the faded picture. She was truly special. Before everything changed, her inner beauty matched her outer beauty. "But I'm the only one who truly remembers how special she was, if something happens to me." He held her hand gently. "It's not right for her to be forgotten. If we had children, they would remember her, bring flowers, and keep her memory alive. It's not much, but I can at least put up a memorial, a stone marker to tell those who pass by that someone truly special lived and is resting there. I want you to have her name Margaret Elise Abbott on the marker, along with the dates January 3rd, 1956 and November 7th, 1980. And these words, 'Here lies a most beautiful lady.' The $10,000 should cover everything." "No." She tried to pull back, but he held her hand. "I don't expect you to handle it. I plan to return and want to do it myself to say goodbye properly, but I can't bear the thought of leaving her without a proper farewell. Please wait until you know I'm not coming back. Do this for me, Debbie. Be my friend." She closed her eyes and felt him let go of her hand. He placed the check in her palm, kissed her cheek, and stood. When she opened her eyes, he and the photo of the love of his life were gone. October 5th, 2005. Wednesday, 4:30 p.m. I had just come back from James's funeral and was diving into the pile of paperwork that had built up over the week. I usually just glance at arrest reports to see if anyone interesting showed up. I almost missed it until something caught my eye, and then I recognized the name. I called the lieutenant in charge at the jail and asked about the prisoner who'd been brought in on Monday and had been there for the past 2 days. "The charge is serious, but there's no bond available." "Why?" "He was supposed to see a judge Tuesday morning," Lieutenant Red Butler said with a strong Arkansas accent that had not faded after 20 years away from the Ozarks. "He almost hurt a woman and scared her a lot. She got a restraining order against him, but before he could go to court, he almost harmed 2 other inmates in the general holding cell where we had him. He also hurt one of my officers, who had to go to the hospital with a dislocated shoulder after getting involved." "What happened? Why weren't more charges pressed against him?" 2 tough inmates confronted him Monday night. By the time it ended, he had badly injured one by smashing his knee and breaking his arm, and the other is now in a coma in the hospital. Bob Harrington, who was on duty, came in to help. The inmate almost hurt Harrington, too. "Why no extra charges? Cameras recorded everything. He was defending himself. The 2 inmates started the fight, and he defended himself before anyone could help. When he saw that Harrington was an officer, he backed off. He even helped put Harrington's shoulder back in place before the other officers arrived. The cameras show it all, and we have audio, too. One of your people warned us that we might be lucky if he didn't file a lawsuit for not protecting him." "Where is he now? And has he seen a judge yet?" "No, we couldn't charge him. But given everything that happened and the fact that the woman who almost got hurt is scared and wants us to keep him locked up, we managed to delay his court appearance for a few days. This gives us time to understand the situation better and let him calm down. We're keeping him in a separate holding cell. It's not safe to leave him in the main area. I'm on my way, Red. I'll be there in 10 minutes. Don't let him know I'm coming. Why the visit? You don't usually come down to see anyone in person. It's personal. Butler was waiting at the entrance when I arrived. They let me in through the door and he led the way. It took about 10 minutes to reach one of the few single cells we have for dangerous visitors or those who need extra protection. The hallway was narrow, with bars on either side, leading to a small room equipped with a cot, a sink, and a television. A dark-haired man was lying on the cot, his arms under his head, watching a soap opera. Butler stood beside me, knowing I kept my distance from the bars so the man could not reach me easily. "I see you know him," he said. Paul Donnelly." After a moment, Donnelly turned his head and looked at both of us. Butler was a stranger to him, but I could tell he remembered me. I searched his face for the strong emotions I had seen when I confronted Doug at UNF, but his expression was blank. He turned back to stare at the ceiling. I asked Butler to bring me a chair, and when it arrived, I sat across from Donnelly. "Mr. Donnelly, I need to talk with you. Can you spare me a few minutes?" He was quiet for what felt like a long time, then sat up quickly, nearly surprising me. "I have time, Mr. Maitland. But why would someone like you come to speak with someone like me? Not just anyone. The hospital records show that she may have serious damage to her vocal cords. You hurt her badly. They said it's a miracle she didn't face worse outcomes. That was your wife for nearly 20 years. How did this happen?" He stared at the floor as if he was trying to figure out the pattern, then said, "I didn't mean to hurt her. If I had, she would be gone. You came very close. I just lost control for a moment, but I didn't want to hurt her." He spoke as if he were talking about the weather or the last Jaguars game. "You know you are a very risky person, right?" He shook his head. "We all have our dangers. You almost hurt your wife. You sent 2 people to the hospital, one with serious injuries. You almost caused a lot of trouble for a jail officer. That makes you more dangerous than most. It makes me think I should do what I can to keep you away from others who might be at risk." He looked at me for a moment, then looked down before meeting my gaze again. I saw something hidden in his eyes for just a second. "I guess you're right, Mr. Maitland. Maybe I shouldn't be let out. I'll make it easier for you. I'll admit to aggravated battery and attempted assault. That should keep me here for a while." I was silent for a moment. I wondered what was behind those blank eyes. I still felt he was a dangerous person, but I didn't think he was truly bad. Still, he had almost harmed his wife. Setting aside the others, they had their own issues, but he had nearly hurt the mother of his 2 college-age children. "Do you want to talk?" "No." "Would you mind, are you going to bring up legal issues if we keep you here a few more days to investigate what happened before you see a judge? You could leave faster if you ask to see the judge." He shook his head again. "No, I'm good here. It helps me think. No distractions." "I'll be back, Paul. Is it okay if I call you Paul?" "Sure, that's my name. Do you mind if I call you Mr. Maitland?" I shook my head. How could I feel a connection with him but not want to share the same space? I started to walk away. He looked at me again, and I didn't see any darkness in him. "Have you ever thought about how we ended up here, Mr. Maitland? Me in here with a wife I care about but can't be with, and you outside with a wife you dedicated your life to, who left you. How does that happen?" I wish I knew, Paul. I really wish I knew. As I crossed the street back to the courthouse, I saw Debbie coming in from the Bay Street entrance. She had the briefcase she used since joining the public defender's office, and she looked good but also upset, like she had just lost something important. I felt a pang of guilt. I thought about the kids and wondered if something was wrong. I told myself that was the reason I cared, but deep down I knew I didn't. I approached her, and she was so lost in thought that she didn't notice me until I stood right in front of her, making her stop quickly. "Bill, I didn't... Is everything all right, Deb? How are the kids?" "The kids? Yeah, they're fine, I think. I haven't spoken to Kelly in a couple of days. BJ is back in school and doing okay as long as I can keep reminding him about his homework." "Then?" "Clint. Just left town. I felt a small twinge of something since I liked him. I'm sorry, Deb. I know you appreciated him. Will he be back soon?" Her face changed, and I realized I had said the wrong thing. Why are all men so clueless? Just to give women a chance to teach us? She glanced at the clock on the courthouse wall and said, I'm sorry, but I need to check in with Johnny. You look good, Bill. That injury healed nicely. Then she walked away. Something felt strange about that meeting, and I realized she hadn't been the one wanting to talk. She must have really liked the guy, and I wasn't sure how that made me feel. When I got back to my office, a tall man with blonde hair in the waiting area looked somewhat familiar, but I couldn't remember where I knew him from. Cheryl said, "This is Mr. Tucker, Mr. Maitland. Do you have a moment?" I went into my office and told her to let him in. He bent his tall frame, he seemed to be around 6'3" or 4", into the chair across from me and said, "It's Gil Tucker. We met on the Bon Chance. I could see you trying to remember me. Remember the captain's dinner?" I remembered. I was surprised that Miss Stein hadn't overwhelmed him, but he looked just fine. "Yeah, it's good to see you again. What can I do for you?" I asked. "I'd like to talk to you about Paul Donnelly and see if I can get permission to visit him. The officer on duty said he was being kept away from others and wasn't allowed visitors." "How do you know Donnelly?" "We used to live next door to each other for years, and I'm his best friend." "What kind of person is he? Did you have any idea he would try to harm his wife?" "No, not really. Not that she didn't have her faults. Actually, that's a strong statement, but Paul is one of the last people you would think would act violently. It's just not who he is, or at least it wasn't. I don't think I've ever seen him truly angry all the time I've known him until recently." "What happened?" "It's a long story. She had been unfaithful for years and he didn't realize it. She was the kind of woman, let me tell you about her. Paul is my best friend. He helped me through a tough time when my own marriage fell apart. Even knowing what she did to him, if she showed up at my door at 3 a.m., I might still be tempted to let her in. That's just the kind of pull she has on people." He discovered her true intentions in the hardest way possible. I had to gather what was left and try to help him recover. He could have left, but she wouldn't leave him alone. He tried to stay away from her, but when they met, he fell apart. That's all I can make of it. I still don't fully understand. He paused for a moment and said, "I need to talk to him. I can get him the best lawyers. I have some money. Actually, I have quite a bit. I worked for Bell Labs and I hold a few patents. I want to help him with his problems." "He doesn't want help. I was just there, and he's in isolation for his safety and others. He caused trouble that led to 2 inmates being taken to the hospital and nearly hurt one of the guards." "Paul? Paul did that?" "There are things about him you don't know." "Clearly. It's like learning something surprising. But I still want to see him." "Okay. I'll call and let them know to let you in. Just remember not to bring any documents or unwanted items." He smiled in response. "Lawyers are more helpful." As he turned to leave, he looked back at me and said, "He's not the man you think he is, Maitland. He truly isn't, no matter how it appears." I watched him walk out the door, thinking that everyone deserves a friend like Gil Tucker or Lou Walters. October 6th, 2005, Thursday, 6:30 p.m. I was driving my Escalade toward Bay Meadows, where a lovely woman was waiting to go to dinner with me when my phone rang. I saw it was an SA number. "What is it, Mitch? Please don't tell me it's an emergency." "It is an emergency." "I told you not to say that. What's going on?" "We have a woman here who is apparently a cousin of Wilbur Bell. She's trying hard to convince Wilbur not to testify against Sutton. I've listened in on their conversation. She told him he was wasting his time because they would never be able to convict Sutton. Plus, Wilbur's daughter might get some money if Wilbur conveniently forgot about the whole thing. That kind of behavior doesn't change. Let me go talk to the cousin and see if I can get her to share what she knows about Sutton and his mom. It would be good to hold them accountable for messing with the jury, even if we can't get him on bigger charges. Get her out of there, but make sure she stays safe. Wilbur doesn't care enough to worry about this. Sutton would gain something if she could cause Wilbur to have a health scare and remove him from the picture. It was a risk because we couldn't use the information we collected if the cousin refused to admit to influencing a witness. However, it gave us a chance, and that made it worth putting other things on hold for a few more days. I called Myra. "Hello, Bill. Please tell me this is to confirm you're on your way here. I got ready and this outfit is strong enough to hold me, but it's still interesting. I wish, Myra. Something urgent came up. I need to leave. It's important, or I'd be there in 30 minutes. Can we grab drinks later tonight? Tomorrow is a workday, Bill, and some of us need our rest. Plus, if you arrive at 11 p.m. and we start drinking, we might end up doing something we'd regret. You might, but I won't. I doubt that. Anyway, I heard you had a good time this past weekend. Myra, do you think I mix work and fun? I think you're a man. It was a busy weekend. You would have had more fun with me, but that sounds too rude. I'm glad you had a good time. Let's plan for another time. I'll call you tomorrow or come see you. I'm not sure about this weekend, but we'll meet up. I'm looking forward to it. Bye. I almost went toward her apartment, but my sense of responsibility held me back. I went to the Baptist Medical Center to see Wilbur and spent a frustrating hour trying to get his cousin to cooperate. She seemed too stubborn, clueless, or greedy to help, so I made sure the hospital staff kept her away from Sutton's room. After that, I went home feeling unsatisfied, but managed to relax a little with some distractions. October 7th, 2005. Friday, 9 a.m. I stood in front of Judge Larry Martin, a young judge who was just a few years older than me, and watched as Paul Donnelly was brought to the defendant's table. Johnny August was already there, which made quite a reaction among the people in the courthouse. The public defender rarely showed up at initial hearings. Donnelly is not a risk for running away, and the idea that he poses a danger to his wife isn't true. His past behavior doesn't require such a high bond, especially since he has a good job and no prior issues. Judge Martin thought carefully, his brow wrinkled. I appreciate the points made by both sides. However, I need to consider the victim's safety and the seriousness of the charges. I could feel the tension in the room as everyone waited for his ruling. Your Honor, the bond amount may seem high, but the circumstances of this case call for caution. The defendant's actions have already caused serious harm, and there are real concerns for his wife's safety if he is released. August leaned back, looking unsatisfied but trying to keep calm. I see your point, Your Honor, but we must remember that the defendant has the right to fair treatment and representation. The bond amount should reflect the seriousness of the alleged actions without causing unnecessary hardship based on opinions. Martin nodded slowly. I will think about both sides of the argument, but I must focus on what is best for the victim. As the case moved forward, everyone kept their attention on the facts instead of personal actions. The air was tense, but respectful, reflecting the seriousness of the situation. Donnelly felt a lot of emotional stress and guilt related to the issue with his wife. He thought staying in custody was a fair consequence for what happened. However, bail has a different role in our legal system. Mr. Donnelly has friends and family ready to support him and help ensure his behavior stays on track. Ask Mr. Donnelly, I said to Martin. Find out his views on this situation. Martin glanced at Donnelly, who looked different from other inmates due to his handcuffs and leg chains. The bailiffs with him were armed for safety. Mr. Donnelly, did you ask for and accept a $1 million cash bond? Martin questioned. Yes, Your Honor, Donnelly answered. Why did you make that request? I asked for a high bond so I wouldn't be released. My wife and I are having serious issues, and she won't stop reaching out to me. I worry that if I see her again, it might lead to serious problems. I'm doing this to keep her safe until it's right for me to go free. Mr. Donnelly, you must know that our jail is not set up as a place for recovery. It is not meant to help people like you manage emotional struggles before they return to society. We are working with his friends to set up counseling for Mr. Donnelly, I told Martin. The state does not want to turn the Duval County Jail into a treatment center. This is a temporary solution to prevent any possible harm. No one gains if Mrs. Donnelly faces serious trouble and their kids lose their parents. We only ask that the bond stay in place for a short time. The state may have good intentions, Your Honor, but this is not the right way to handle it, August spoke up. Martin thought for a moment, then responded, I tend to agree, but for the sake of public safety and knowing this will be reviewed soon, I will set the bond for now. October 7th, 2005. Friday, 3 p.m. David Brandon, a colleague of mine, came in without knocking. He was one of the few who could do that. Even though I had a leadership role, Brandon had been around longer and accepted my rise to lead without any issues. He was usually a nice guy. "Hi," he said, handing me a letter over my desk. "Hey, Dave, what's this about?" "Read it and see." I opened the letter and began to read. "Mr. Brandon, I want to take back my earlier request concerning my husband, Paul Donnelly, and his custody situation. I ask that he be released, as I am formally withdrawing my complaint against him. I know that charges have been filed against him for assault, but those charges are not true. We had an argument, and I overreacted while he was trying to protect himself. If anyone should take the blame, it should be me, not him. He took responsibility because that's just who he is. I lied about what happened, saying he hurt me in anger, and I even caused some of my own injuries to support my claim. A friend helped me create marks for the accusation, but they used too much pressure by mistake. I will not testify against my husband, no matter what the state attorney's office decides to do about me. I regret what I did, and am ready to take responsibility for any legal outcomes from this letter. Sincerely, Paula Donnelly. "Can you believe this?" Dave said, shaking his head. "Not really. I wonder if she knows that he has already shown he can be dangerous, and no one will believe her if she says she faked those injuries." I talked to the officer who came to the scene. She said Paula was very scared when they got there. She could hardly breathe, was shaking, and looked like she was having a hard time calming down. The officer has seen many cases and said there was no way Paula was just pretending. She was truly frightened. So why would she want to take back what she said? Why would anyone want to let someone go who almost hurt them, especially if that means facing trouble for giving false information? Does any of this make sense to you? Dave shook his head. "No, but at this point, if Donnelly wants to be free, maybe we should let him. If she really wants to withdraw her claims, even if there's proof, it would be hard to win a case. It's tough to fight against a worried spouse saying she lied in a moment of panic after an argument. Plus, with the situation in jail, we could have some serious concerns. I think the higher-ups might tell us to let him go before we face any troubles." I couldn't argue with what he said, but inside I didn't want to let Donnelly go back outside just yet. I needed to look into what was happening with his wife and figure things out before making any decisions. "By the way, Bill, she called about an hour ago and asked to meet with us about the case. I thought we could come up with a plan to sort this out." "I don't know, Dave. Maybe I should be involved in—" "Bill, you've already worked about 90 hours this week. You have other things to take care of. I'll have Gary Matthews join me, and I won't do anything yet. I'll reach out to you over the weekend to let you know we can't move forward until Monday. This way, if you have any concerns about this, you can still make the final decision. Okay?" I had a lot on my mind. I was a bit curious about Paula Donnelly based on what Gil Tucker had said, but after my past, I didn't feel the need to dig deeper. I know that my previous marriage was different, but sometimes I still felt it applied. However, if Gil Tucker was right, Paula Donnelly was not like anyone I had met before. "Hey, didn't your kids have that softball game tonight? I thought you promised Darlene you would finish work on time this time." If anyone was more committed in their marriage than I had been, it would be Brandon. His wife wasn't the flashiest, but Brandon truly cared for her and their kids. Knowing there were marriages like his made me feel a bit better. "I'll make it in time. The game is at night and doesn't start until 6. I promised Darlene I'd finish early. It shouldn't take more than an hour or two to wrap things up with Miss Donnelly, and then I'll be done." I finished by 7:30 p.m. and called Brandon's office, but there was no answer. I had stopped by Myra's earlier, but she already had plans with her friends. "I'm a bit surprised you'd go out when you could spend time with someone as successful as me," I said with a smile to keep things light. "These are two of my oldest friends, Bill. I don't have many female friends for obvious reasons. I know you know that. They're visiting this weekend, so can we reschedule for next week?" Thinking about Lou Walters and Gil Tucker, and how lost I would have been without their support during tough times, I said, "Yeah, that's fine. Enjoy your time." I'll keep myself busy. When I finally got to the gym and grabbed a late coffee, it was already past 10 p.m. I went to the Liberty Street condo, a place I struggled to think of as home, and turned on some late-night television. It was no longer as empty as it used to feel, or maybe I had just changed. On Saturday, I visited the Bascoms, enjoyed coffee with Kathy and Roy, and managed to get Kelly to join me for breakfast at an IHOP. I had some exercise to catch up on after that treat, but it was worth every minute. We chatted, and I learned a bit about the highs and lows in the life of a bright 18-year-old. Strangely, I felt closer to her than when we had been living together. BJ was away for the night with a friend, leaving me with some free time. I tried calling Heather McDonald and Megan Whitcomb, but they weren't available, so I decided to head to St. Augustine. I walked along the beach, fed popcorn to the seagulls until they became loud, and spent time sitting in the dunes that night watching the stars, wondering where Paris might be on the horizon ahead of me. I got back to the condo by 11 p.m. As I turned on the television and opened a Diet 7-Up, a thought struck me. I looked around the small, now familiar rooms just like I had the night before. This place might never feel like home, but I was changing. I was getting used to this life, this solitary life. I had never really expected that to happen, yet it had. I wasn't sure if that made me happy or sad. October 10th, 2005, Monday, 9 a.m. I had gone to the gym early that morning and returned just before 8:45 a.m. I was deep into paperwork on 4 upcoming cases when Dave Brandon walked in. He looked a bit uneasy, but otherwise he seemed like the same old Dave I had known for more than 10 years. "You didn't email or call me, Dave. I was waiting to hear about your meeting." "Do you think she might be lying or making up the accusation?" "Gary and I really tried to get her to change her mind. I told her there could be serious consequences for making a false criminal claim. I said it was important and that we take such things seriously, but nothing worked. She remained firm, saying she had made it up and even gave us the name and phone number of the person she said was involved. We talked to her for 2 hours and still couldn't get through to her. She's either someone who doesn't understand right from wrong, or she's putting on a very convincing act." "So you believe her?" He sat across from me, rubbed his chin, and thought for a moment while tugging at his ear. It seemed like he was unsure about what to say next. "Yeah, to be honest, I think I do. I wouldn't blame that poor man if he felt trapped. You have to see this woman, Bill. I always thought Debbie was the most beautiful woman I had ever seen, except for Myra Martinez, but Paula Donnelly is, I can't find the words. You would just have to be in the same room with her. She has a presence that's really hard to explain." I stared at him in disbelief. This didn't sound like the man I had worked with for a decade. "You didn't develop feelings for her, did you?" He jumped a bit at my question and gave me a sheepish look. It was obvious she had affected him. He laughed, and even that laugh seemed forced. "No, not at all. If anything, I might have found her interesting for a moment. I've never thought about other women that way, but if I weren't married, maybe I would have approached her. What I'm trying to say is, I can see why that poor man would be heartbroken to find out what she's been involved in for almost 10 years. She said that when she finally talked to him and opened up about everything, he didn't become angry. He seemed to freeze and didn't say anything before walking away. So why would he admit to wanting to hurt his wife and ask to stay in jail? She said he found out about things almost a month ago and she has been trying to meet with him to discuss ending their marriage. She wants to leave, but he has been avoiding her. He managed to stay away until this past weekend. When she told him she wanted a divorce, he just shut down and wouldn't respond. I think he's using us to avoid facing the truth about his marriage." I leaned back in my chair, watching him closely. I'm not sure if we should help him right now. He's too unpredictable. Even if he didn't threaten her, he could cause problems quickly if he wanted to. He shook his head again. He might be a risk to others, but you heard what August said. The guy has no criminal record and hasn't harmed anyone until the other night in jail, and that was self-defense. Paula said he never seemed like he would hurt her that night. She mentioned that she lost her temper when he walked away and decided to get him arrested on a false charge. She's not worried about him physically harming her. Now it was Paula instead of Mrs. Donnelly. I was starting to regret not being in the meeting. This woman must have had a strong effect on a man like Dave Brandon, and his view that Donnelly had never harmed anyone else seemed off. But I couldn't share my own past. Bottom line, I don't think he's a threat to his wife. I believe the charge was blown out of proportion. We might face legal issues the longer we keep him here, and I think we should have Martin lift the cash bond. Paula said she'd pay it the moment we do that. All she wants is to sit down with him, and he can have a lawyer arranged by his friend Gil Tucker. She just wants to find closure on her marriage, to get him to agree that it's really over. What do we do about Mrs. Donnelly? She's saying she filed a false police report, and that's what started this whole mess. He looked at me and smiled. If I could have a jury of 6 women, all of them straight, I might take her to trial. But if one straight guy or lesbian is there, I don't think we could convict her. Is she that appealing? You'd have to see her in person to understand, but yes. Do you think Matthews would agree with what you said? Yes, we talked after she left the office. What time did she go? About 5, I think. Look, the longer we keep this guy, the more trouble we could face. I really think we need to let him go. I know the situation at the jail looks bad, but he was part of an incident. I leaned back and thought about it. How did your son's game go? What? He looked at me as if he didn't understand. Sorry, I was just thinking about something else. You mentioned before that Jerry was a promising pitcher. He threw a remarkable game once. How did he do Friday night? Oh, he had an okay game. He struck out all but 4 batters and only allowed 2 runs. It was a good night for him, but not his best. Anyway, unless you have strong concerns, I'm going to go to Martin's office and ask him to remove the cash bond. Donnelly can be released on his own or for a low bond. Why don't you wait, Dave? Let me think about it a little longer. I'll get back to you in an hour. I'm pretty sure I'll let him go, but I just have a few doubts. I know you've been in that situation before. Just let me clear my thoughts, okay? Sure, but I'll let Martin's office know that we will probably be down there this morning. After he left, I stared at the door for a few minutes. I knew and trusted Dave Brandon, but something had been bothering me since I watched him. I had played poker with him a few times, and anyone who played often noticed his little habit when he was bluffing. He tugged at his right ear. No one ever told him about it because they liked winning his money. He never figured out why he always ended up losing at poker. Then there was that Paula. Dave was a formal guy, so it usually would have been Mrs. Donnelly. And Dave was very proud of being a father. Whenever he started talking about how great his son was at baseball, it was hard to change the subject. It felt like talking about his son's game today was just a side note. I went through my contacts on my computer and called a number. The phone rang several times before someone answered. After I hung up, I sat at my desk for about 30 minutes, thinking about what I had found out. I couldn't believe the news, but it was starting to make sense. It made me feel uneasy. Why was it always bad news in this line of work? Even when we had some victories, they often came after dealing with awful situations that left lives in shambles. It was just part of the job we had. We were the ones who came in after the mess caused by the darker side of life. I had to be thankful for justice, not for happy endings. I walked down the stairs instead of taking the elevator. I was stalling because I knew what I had to say and do. I approached Sally Evans. She smiled and said, "He's waiting for you, Mr. Maitland." I entered his office and shut the door behind me. By then, I think he understood what was happening. I sat down and we stared at each other for a few moments. What went wrong, Dave? What happened? What you think, Bill, but it isn't exactly that. I didn't do anything against the law. Maybe it was a little unethical. Risky, but not against the law. You got too close to someone in a tough spot, Dave. A woman who is feeling stressed and vulnerable. You got mixed up with someone looking for help from our office, and I can guess she might have had some hopes. She never asked me for anything, Bill. We didn't discuss it. It just happened. What? Did she just come up to you out of the blue? Seriously, where was your mind? If Darlene ever finds out about this, I know what kind of person she is. She won't think twice about ending things. He looked into my eyes as if trying to figure out my next move. If the boss hears about this, maybe you didn't mean anything by it. But it certainly looks like you took advantage of a tough time. You didn't promise her anything, did you? Please say you didn't make any plans. You still don't understand, Bill. You think you know what happened, but you really have no clue. I wish things had turned out differently. I was trying to make sense of what he meant. How could it be anything other than I thought? He wouldn't be the first person in charge to get involved with someone in need. I never did because I always had someone special waiting for me at home. How did you figure it out, Bill? Not that it matters, and I won't be able to play poker with you again, but you always pull on your ear when you're lying, and you were too casual when you talked about Paula. I could tell from your face. You seemed distracted. And last, you just didn't mention Jerry's baseball game enough. So I called Darlene to congratulate her on Jerry's great game, and she mentioned you were working late and didn't get home until after 11. She was really upset with me for putting you in a tough situation with late-night work, especially since you've been at the office longer than I have. You didn't give anything away, did you? No, I apologized for letting my single status make me forget that the married guys have lives outside work. I was so good that Darlene asked if I could come to a party you guys are having next weekend. She mentioned that she has a friend who is divorced and wants me to meet her. For a moment, I managed to forget why I was down here. How did this happen? Have you put our office at risk? Is there a chance she could go to the news if we don't talk to Donnelly about the behavior of one of the top assistants? He shook his head and stared at a globe on his desk. It had a little figure that moved when you shook the globe. That was the most daring thing in his life, or so it seemed. Even after what had happened, I found it hard to believe. I honestly didn't know what to expect, Bill. I thought she would probably be attractive. If a guy gets that excited, you wouldn't think it would be someone boring. But when she walked in, it was just like I said you had to be there. She had long black hair and eyes that pulled you in. Her presence was powerful. I looked at her and felt a shock. Luckily, I was sitting down. Matthews was standing. He just gave me this grin and then looked at her. She seemed to notice him. Just a quick glance, but it was clear. He paused and then gave me an awkward look. I knew things were getting out of hand. That just wasn't me. Matthews is single, and I hear he can be quite bold, but even he. Anyway, I tried to bring the conversation back to work. We talked for almost an hour, and she said everything I expected her to say. I tried to talk to her and explain my worries about how risky this situation could be. We couldn't trust the story she was telling us. While we spoke, Matthews kept looking at her, and the tension in the air was thick. She was saying how much she loved her husband, but the way she glanced at me made me uneasy. It reminded me of a summer before I met Darlene when a friend asked me to take his sister out on a double date. I thought it would be just a simple evening, but she was tall and very eye-catching, and from the moment I saw her, I knew that night would be unforgettable. I don't recall where we ate or which place we went to afterward. I think I was a bit dazed. We never made it back to my home. Instead, we headed to my car. I felt so many emotions that I could barely hold it together. I got into the driver's seat. She came over, adjusted the seat, and found a comfy spot. We shared a quiet moment, surrounded by the strong feelings of that night. The world seemed to disappear as the situation became intense, but I had to remind myself of what I had to protect. He looked at me, coming back from his thoughts. It was a moment I can't forget. I love Darlene, and our relationship is strong, but that night with my friend's sister felt special somehow. As I sat in my office with Sally outside and people passing by, the tension grew. I kept looking at a picture of Darlene and the kids on my desk, hoping it would help me stay grounded. I lost track of my thoughts. She looked at me, and her eyes held a message I couldn't ignore. "This is silly, Mr. Brandon," she said. "We both know where this is going, and we're just wasting time." She stood up. She wasn't very tall, but her presence made her hard to ignore. She walked around the desk and put her hand on my arm. I was surprised and confused about what was happening, but in that moment, I didn't stop her. I knew someone could come in at any moment, and the situation could get serious, but I still didn't stop her. Gary was next to us, watching. The tension in the room was heavy, something I had never felt before. Then she stood up, took a pen from my desk, and wrote something down on a notepad. She looked at us one last time before leaving the office. "I'll be at the Hyatt Regency," she said. "I'll be there until 7, and I wouldn't mind some company. No strings attached." Then she walked out. Gary and I exchanged looks. It felt a bit awkward, but I didn't care much at that point. I told Sally I was out on a case, called Darlene, and told her I had to work late. After that, I drove over to the Hyatt. I didn't leave until late in the evening. Once I got back, I made sure to tidy up before returning home to Darlene. I looked at Gary, shaking my head. "That's quite a story. It's not the best choice for a married assistant to make. But you didn't promise her anything, and there wasn't any talk about a deal for her husband, right? You didn't do anything at the hotel that would draw attention, did you?" Maybe we can handle this. Edwards doesn't need to know and she doesn't have any power over you. But she could create problems for us if she wanted. Dave, I expected better judgment from you. I understand Gary. He's younger and single. Brandon lowered his head, looking troubled by what we were discussing. When he looked up, his face showed his worry, and that's when I started to feel uneasy. On Saturday, I was at home with the kids while Darlene went shopping. Jerry was playing video games and the girls were watching a movie in their room. There was a knock at the door and I answered it. A man stood there holding a big envelope. I didn't think much of the package. We often get deliveries at the office. I asked him what it was, but he just gave me the envelope and left. It felt odd, but I took it to my home office and opened it. Inside, there was nothing to explain what it was. I put it in the player and turned on the TV. He paused for a moment, looking away, then opened a desk drawer and got out a portable DVD player. He plugged it in and said, "Lock the door." I sat next to him. He pressed play, and the screen showed a private moment involving him and two others. The images were shocking and clearly meant to hurt him. It was clear evidence of what had happened. I could see why he found her appealing. She was not big, but her looks were striking. She captured his attention eagerly. "You like this, don't you? You want to enjoy it for a moment?" "Oh, yes." "Are you glad I visited your office today, Mr. Brandon?" "Do you really need to ask, Paula? Can't you tell how happy I am you're here?" "Would you prefer to be here or home with your wife?" After a pause. "It seems a bit unfair that you can't tell me I'm more attractive than your wife. Does she compare to this?" She moved closer and he looked pleased. "Will you think about me tonight instead of being with her? Will you, Mr. Brandon?" "You know I will. I think of you every night, wishing you were here." He paused the video. "There are 2 hours like that. I shared things, personal things about Darlene. I didn't realize what she was up to until I saw this video." "She recorded you?" "Who else? I'm not part of anything that connects to this, and it showed up at my home, not my work. She's trying to make a point." "If I hadn't been there." He rubbed his eyes. "It's not just that she will leave me if she ever finds out about this. I've never cheated, and I know she hasn't either." He looked up at me, and I could see both embarrassment and pride in his gaze. "I know that many people don't find her attractive, but some like different body types. It sounds strange, but the guy who cleans our pool walks around without a shirt in the summer." I saw her speak to him firmly about how he was acting. We talked about it after that. I was proud of how she handled the situation. But I have to admit, I worry about younger people being interested in her. She took me to the bedroom and we shared a moment that really stayed with me. She told me I was the only man who would ever earn her trust. He looked into my eyes. "That's the woman who will hear me say I think about someone else while I'm with my wife. She'll hear me say my experiences with her are better than they've ever been with my wife. I feel so overwhelmed." She was playing with your feelings, Dave. People often say things in the heat of the moment. That wasn't really you talking. Maybe, but those words don't change. It doesn't change what I did. I've been trying to stay away from Darlene, but I know she's going to start asking questions. If I look into her eyes, I fear I will break down and confess everything. I know she won't understand. He buried his head in his hands. "What am I going to do, Bill? You need to let him go. I have to hope and pray she won't reveal this. Then I just need to figure out how to live with it. If you keep him here, I know she will find another way to share it or hint to Darlene where to look." He looked at me, and I'd never seen such deep desperation. "I was wrong, I was foolish. Bill, please, please let him go. I won't ask you for another favor, and I will be forever grateful. But please, help me with this." I just sat there in shock, trying to process what I had heard. "This doesn't make sense, Dave. This woman is not a secret agent or a criminal. She's just a regular housewife. How could she walk in, influence 2 seasoned lawyers, arrange a hidden recording, and try to manipulate the state attorney's office? If she were a man, I'd say she had a lot of boldness. There must be more to this story. I've tried calling her since Saturday, but she hasn't picked up. I don't know what's happening. I mean, I do, but I'm confused too. How can a typical housewife accomplish this or even plan it? Why did she come to me instead of you or Matthews or anyone else? How did she know I was the most dedicated person here, at least since you and Debbie parted ways? This wouldn't have worked with anyone else quite like this. And why is she doing this? The man tried to hurt her. We both know that, yet she is working to help him? If I wrote this as a story, no one would believe it. The phone rang, and Dave seemed to think about letting it go to voicemail, but then he answered. "What is it, Sally? Who? Put her on. What are you doing? Do you have any idea?" He stopped suddenly, as if he realized something. He stared at the phone in surprise and then handed it to me. "Mr. Maitland, this is Paula Donnelly. I believe you've seen my video, and Dave has told you what happened on Friday. You're smart, so I shouldn't have to explain. Are you going to set my husband free?" Her voice was raspy, as if she had been under stress for a long time, but I understood what she meant. "I'm not sure, Mrs. Donnelly. You have crossed the line from being a loving wife to something else. It doesn't feel like a wife trying to rescue her husband. It feels more complicated than that. I just can't explain it. If I send someone to find Mrs. Brandon at the grocery store and give her an interesting DVD, your friend could face serious problems tonight, and his marriage might be at risk. She loves him and may want to forgive him, but what he said while he was with me will stick in her mind. In the end, she might not be able to move on. Are you willing to put your friend's marriage and his life on the line just to keep Paul locked up a few more days?" That's all it would be. No matter what you decide, Paul will be out soon, and by then it won't matter if Dave's marriage is over. I need a way to reach you. Dave said he's tried to contact you for 3 days without luck. I want to speak with your husband and think about things for a bit. Then I'll call you today. He couldn't reach me because I didn't want to talk. You control the situation. I wanted to wait for you, so here's my cell number. Call me, but please don't take too long. I wrote down the number and she ended the call. She knew I was here and had seen the video. She also knew better than to confront me because I won't be forced like this anymore. What trouble have you gotten into, Dave? He couldn't answer because neither of us understood what was really happening, but I was determined to find out. Buzz Holloway, the lieutenant on duty, met me at the entrance to the jail and led me through the twists to the single cell where Paul Donnelly lay on his bunk. His cell was filled with at least 30 paperback books. He looked up as I entered. "Maitland? Hello, Paul. How are you doing?" He set aside the old paperback he had been reading. This felt increasingly strange. There were too many connections, but I decided to ignore that for now. "All right, I guess. I haven't taken a week off work without Paula in 20 years. We've always been together, so it's been a little strange. On the bright side, I haven't had to see her in a week, which is a relief. The food is even decent. Thank you for letting Gil come in to speak with me. He's a good friend. Better than I deserve." "I understand that. Listen, Paul, we need to have a serious talk. I need you to open up to me. Honestly, I sense there are many things you're not sharing. Everyone has secrets. Can we skip the calm talk for a moment? There are things happening, things involving your wife that are affecting others. Can you just talk to me like a normal person for a few minutes?" "What do you mean?" He got up but stayed on the cot. I looked at Holloway, then around the room. There were recording devices, and I wasn't sure he could turn them off even if he wanted to. "I need to speak with him alone. Can you take us somewhere we can talk without being recorded?" He thought for a moment. 10 minutes later, he and another guard had Donnelly cuffed behind his back with shackles on his legs. They walked with us as Donnelly shuffled to a back elevator and then up to the 3rd floor. They led us to a room with 2 doors, a microwave, a fridge, a table, 2 chairs, and a couch that seemed like it could fold out. "This is the staff room," Holloway said. "Sometimes when things get busy, people take breaks or rest here. It's also a place for private talks." "I understand. So this is not being recorded?" "Not at all." "I'll knock on the door when we're done. Sound good?" Once they left and Donnelly was sitting uncomfortably on the couch, I sat next to him. "A friend of mine is about to lose his marriage. He's going to lose his wife and kids unless I agree to drop the charges against you and let you go. But I know what you're capable of. I don't know what you are, but I see that you can cause serious harm, and you almost hurt your wife. If I don't help you, I might be ruining a friend's life, but if I do help you, I worry you might act without thinking and create more problems. I don't want to carry that weight. Please, talk to me." "You mentioned I have many secrets. You're right. You have no idea, Maitland. Share one with me. My grandfather passed away in a place for people with serious challenges. I stayed quiet. It's not. I don't think there's such a thing as a gene for insanity. He dealt with what we might call anger issues today. He confronted two people outside a bar one night in Massachusetts. He had something similar to what I have. It's nothing unnatural. Doctors at the place where I spent some time called it strong tendon strength. A researcher said that some scientists believe this might relate to the legend of the Viking berserkers. Rage was part of it, but having the strength to face challenges was another key aspect. Tendon strength, like many traits, is different in each person. Some people have very weak tendon strength, while others, like me, have it stronger. If you have it, you can do amazing things, but it's natural, just rare according to the doctors. You must impress people at events. Why didn't Gil know about this? Didn't your wife see how strong you are? He leaned forward, resting his chin on his hands, looking down at the floor. When I was a teenager, I made some big mistakes. He stayed quiet for a long time, and I wondered if he was lost in thought, somewhere only he could understand. I went to therapy for a long time. I had my grandfather's strength and his hidden anger. They showed me how to handle it, and I did. I managed to keep it inside me as if it had disappeared, but it was always there, waiting. It stayed with me when I met Paula in college. I loved her so much. I kept my feelings hidden, both the good ones and the bad ones. She was like a spark. Everything felt brighter and more alive when I was with her. He looked at me. You were in love, so you get the strong feelings. But you didn't have to hide who you were. I couldn't let her see the real me. I thought she would never love me. No one could. Somehow she fell for the person I pretended to be. We got married, had kids, and built a life together. But then, Gil told me, someone else came along and showed her what she really wanted. He took her away without me even noticing. He took a deep breath, trying to calm himself, and I felt a shiver run through me. So I lived with a woman who didn't love me anymore. I hardly recognized her, and she didn't know the real me. It became a strange situation until I found out the truth. All I wanted was to get away from her. It was confusing. She didn't love me, couldn't love me, yet she always wanted my attention. She finally confronted me in our home, and strong emotions exploded. I felt overwhelmed. It could have turned into a big fight, but we stood in front of our children's pictures. She was upset, but it felt like I was in a different place. They were my focus. They were looking at me. I couldn't do it. That's the story, Mr. Maitland. That's who I am and why I can't see Paula again. I know it would end badly. You can't let me out. October 10th, 2005, Monday, 2 p.m., Mrs. Donnelly. Mr. Maitland, were you able to speak with my husband? What is your choice? I made one, but I want to speak with you first. What is so hard about what I'm asking? Paul is one of the most harmless people you could meet, apart from what happened between us. And I started that. I will handle things better next time. As for the stories about jail, I know my husband, at least I thought I did. Even now, I don't believe what they're saying. I know him better than anyone else. No, you don't, Mrs. Donnelly. You think you understand him, but you really don't. I believe you might be surprised in the future. Why don't you come to my office so we can talk? Maybe we can find a middle ground. No middle ground. I thought Dave Brandon was your friend. I know you've been to his home and met his wife. This information will hurt her deeply. How did you learn all this? Are you some sort of official? That's silly. I'm just a housewife from Jacksonville who works part-time in real estate to stay busy. I'm not special. But time is not on your side. I can send over a large amount of money in an hour. Once that happens, you lose any power. He'll be freed no matter what you say. If you're being honest, I'm glad to hear that because it means you can make mistakes. Bail isn't guaranteed. You can offer that money, but Paul has to agree and sign for it. He can just say no. Bond just ensures that someone who wants to leave will return for their trial. You should know he won't walk out. This time there was a pause, and when she spoke again, I felt like I had affected her a bit. She was not as strong as I first thought. I could come down and talk to him, even though I didn't need to be an expert to see her fear. She was scared, very scared of the man in the cell, the man she had been with for 20 years, the man she had let down. But as she came back, I could see she was determined to go see him. I still couldn't understand what was happening between them. They would let me into the jail, or I could find a way to get in. Trust me, you are the last person he wants to see. If he had any chance of being freed, it had to be without you nearby. Just come to my office and talk to me. No, not there. We need a place that works for both of us. How about Carrabba's on Atlantic Boulevard? Do you know it? Yes, it will take me about an hour or maybe 2 to reach there. How about 4:30? Okay, I'll see you there. Mr. Maitland, I'm looking forward to meeting you. I'm curious about you. Even without trying hard, her voice and memories of our earlier talks drew me in. And I'm interested in you too, Mrs. Donnelly. If she had that impact just over the phone, maybe I should think about bringing someone with me. As I sat in my office, looking through the window at the bright fall scenery, I tried to understand what had been happening since I saw Donnelly's name in the jail log. If I weren't who I am, if I hadn't spent the last 10, almost 11 years doing what I do and witnessing what I have, I would never have thought this way. It was a troubling thought that made me reflect on the years I had spent exploring human nature. Still, she had already made some choices that raised questions. Even if she still cared for Paul Donnelly, she had been willing to put an innocent person at risk to achieve her goals. Could loving someone truly mean being ready to do anything for them, no matter what? I made 2 more phone calls to confirm my thoughts and hoped I was wrong about her actions. Then I went downstairs, got into my car, and drove to Carrabba's, navigating through the afternoon traffic to arrive by 4:30 p.m. She was sitting at a table in a room at the back of the restaurant. When she saw me, her expression showed that she understood how serious this was. She was lovely, exuding confidence in her outfita relaxed, stylish blouse and a skirt that suited her well, giving off a charm that was unlike anything I'd seen lately. As I walked toward her, she stood up and reached out her hand. I took it. She was as delicate as Dave had described. Mr. Maitland. Mrs. Donnelly. I sat across from her, and we just looked at each other. I wondered if her heart was as troubled as I feared, or if she was just someone who had hurt a naive man's feelings, someone who wanted to mend things, at least for the sake of cherished memories. I glanced around our section and saw it was empty. This wasn't unusual yet, as it was still early for the lunchtime crowd. But there was one man a few tables away, tall and dark-haired in a suit. He was looking toward the entrance, and I thought he looked familiar. A sense of dread washed over me as I worried my suspicions would be proven true. I noticed a male waiter peek out from the kitchen and look in our direction. His attention was on the man, and I saw him shake his head before retreating back. Paula Donnelly took a deep breath, and I realized she was aware of the gravity of the moment. A subtle smile appeared on her lips. We need to talk, Mr. Maitland. I hope you don't mind if I take a quick step first. She nodded to a man in a suit, who then stood tall and walked toward us. I noticed a shape under the right side of his coat, showing he was a detective. As he got closer, he reached into his jacket and pulled out a small electronic device. I do mind, Paula. I looked up at Sergeant Heck Powell and said, Please leave, Sergeant. I won't let you search me for recording devices. You're not here on official business, Maitland. Paula told me you won't call for help because you don't want any attention. Many of my friends think you were wrong about Sean, so don't think being a prosecutor means anything to me. Just sit down, be quiet, and let me check you. I looked from his serious expression to Paula's slight smile and said, You wanted privacy, so you brought someone to watch me in this empty room. Do you really think I'd agree just because he looks tough? Any trouble, Mr. Maitland, and your friend's marriage could be at risk. We can also tell the press that you came here with questionable intentions. You're well known, but many would enjoy seeing you fail just as much as they would support you. Why don't you let Heck check you and then we can talk? I don't think so, Paula. Powell started to speak, but I interrupted. I've always thought you were making bad choices, but I didn't know it was this serious. Powell turned around and saw Sergeant Bob Hastings standing behind him. He was wearing his patrol uniform, resting his hand casually at his side. Hastings was shorter than Powell, but still carried himself with confidence. I always believed you made poor choices and got promoted because of connections, but this? Are you really willing to put your whole career on the line over this? Powell regained his confidence and looked down at Hastings. You're overstepping your boundaries, Powell said. This isn't your area. I have as much authority here as you do. If you want to make this a bigger issue, we can step outside and deal with it there. Let's keep this between us, Hastings. Are you ready for that? All right, Powell. Just wait until you take Bob. Then we'll see what you've got. I couldn't help but smile a bit as Powell turned around and faced the serious expression of Lieutenant Bobby Martin from the Narcotics Task Force. Martin was tall and strong, clearly holding a higher rank than Powell. "What are you doing here? You shouldn't be." "So what are you doing here, Powell? Why are you using your badge to scare people? This isn't what you're supposed to do. And doing it in front of the county's main prosecutor? He could complain, and then you might have some serious trouble." Powell tried to act tough. "This isn't your problem, Martin. Just get back to your work." "How about we step outside and you say that without your badge? Are you really that careless, or is this worth it?" "It better be, because you're putting your career at risk. If you push this further, you could lose everything." "It's all right, Heck. This isn't worth putting you in a difficult situation. Please, just go and I'll call you later." The officer's gaze rested on Paula's kind face. She smiled at him gently. "Thank you for supporting me. It was worth a try, but I'll be okay. I don't want to get you in trouble. I know you could stand up to him, but it could cost you your job." "Don't take that chance." "Listen to her, Powell," Hastings said, sounding a bit understanding. "I know it can be tempting, but it's wise to just walk away." He seemed like he wanted to say more, but changed his mind, waved to Paula, and walked away. A few curious waiters peeked out to see him leave. "You're causing more trouble than it's worth," Martin said to me. "But it's a good thing Hauser really valued your work." "I'm only here because I knew he would have said, 'Support him.'" Hastings looked from Paula to me, shook his head, and with a slight smile said, "You and those charming women. I don't know what you have, but I'd like a bit of it." Then they left, and it was just Paula Donnelly and me. I noticed that no waiters came by until I waved one over, and he approached cautiously. "Please bring me coffee and for the lady." "White wine," she replied. A few moments later, I was sipping my coffee while she swirled the golden drink before taking a sip. She set the glass down and said, "I shouldn't have done that, but I've learned to be careful. I just realized that it really doesn't matter. You can record me, but no jury would convict me. I'm just a heartbroken wife trying to fix what I nearly ruined. A good lawyer could set me free." "What are you, Paula? How do you know what you know? How could you walk in and get two professionals to leave their posts? How did you manage to gather $1 million in cash? You're just a housewife, the spouse of a publicist for a small college." She thoughtfully rubbed her lip and placed her hand over mine. It was a simple, warm gesture that made us feel like we were the only two people in the world at that moment. "I'm very smart, Bill. That's part of it. Not always as smart as I believe, because I thought I was cleverer than you, but you were a step ahead. They say my IQ is 170 or 180, genius level, whatever that means. I never used it much because as a busy mom raising two kids, it didn't seem important. But when I started working in real estate and using my mind more, I discovered there are no limits to what you can achieve and how much you can earn." She lightly touched my hand. Strangely, I didn't feel any thrill. "You asked me how I can influence two trained lawyers. It's because you all act in predictable ways. I have confidence and know how to build relationships. I understand people, which has opened many doors for me." "You might think I'm being silly, but listen carefully, Bill, because I want to share something important that many miss. We have a lot of influence. It may not always seem that way, but there's a process where we often take the lead. You may think you are the ones making decisions, but it can be the other way around. We know where the real connections are. We make you believe you're great teammates or that you don't measure up in relationships, because none of you can compare with those of us who understand what really connects people on a deeper level. Your views can hold you back, but connections are important. They bring joy, and they're the main reason we share our lives with you. While they bring happiness, they can also feel limited. That's why we always look for new experiences." She smiled at me. "You look surprised, Bill, but you didn't pick Debbie Bascom. She picked you and brought you into her life. She supported you until things changed, and then she looked for something new. Many people hide their true feelings, thinking no one could understand them if they were fully themselves. But I have learned to accept who I am. I've found success through my ambitions. If you give someone a chance to follow their dreams while connecting meaningfully, very few would turn that down. Many might judge my choices, but I am not concerned with their opinions. I find happiness in my relationships and enjoy the achievements in my life. I have built a successful career, and my husband has no idea how involved I truly am. I rely on trusted advisors for my business, and in this case, I wanted to find the best way to reach my goals. I looked into my options and realized I had to learn more about you. I wasn't sure if regular methods would work. Even if I tried them, I knew you wouldn't be easily swayed, but your loyalty makes you strong and vulnerable at the same time. I discovered the right way to connect with you, and your commitment will help us solve this challenge. So you are very smart, ambitious, and you've made some choices in your personal life that people might question. I get that. But why would someone as wise as you risk facing serious outcomes for your decisions? You say you want change, but that doesn't fully match your plans, which is why I've been unsure. Your words say one thing, but your actions suggest another, making me hesitant. Everything needs to make sense to you? Everything must fit together perfectly? Yes. I'm not claiming to be perfect, Bill. I don't see myself as completely flawed, but I know many might think that way. I made promises, had a family, and then something changed, making me reconsider those vows. I've looked into various connections, trying to stay true to my values, but there have been times I felt disconnected, even when I was there. I stopped loving him because, to be honest, he wasn't the partner I needed. He's kind and cares for me, but he doesn't have the strength I want. He's like a shallow pool, beautiful on the outside, but lacking depth. He was really quite boring. She waved to the waiter in the kitchen, and he brought her another glass of wine. I stayed with him for our kids and because it was easy. Sometimes it felt simpler to handle being a wife than to find my own freedom. A part of me still cares for him, like how you feel for an old pitone that has been with you for a long time but can no longer get around easily. You can't just leave them when their time is running out. She looked into her glass of wine. I can guess what you think, Bill. I knew I had my faults. I knew our time together would end, either before the kids finished school or when they grew up. I decided to stick it out, until he found out my secret. I was always worried, careful about everything, but it didn't help. He found out, and then didn't want to see me for almost a month. It was strange. I had hidden from him for so long, but when I finally wanted to talk, he felt so far away. When I found him at home, I just wanted to chat, but he reacted in a surprising way. I thought he was joking, that he would never truly hurt me. Yet there I was, feeling like I was in a nightmare. I must have fainted. When I woke up, I was on the floor, struggling to breathe. He just watched me quietly. I thought he might come closer to finish what he had started. I tried to move, but I felt too weak and scared. I had always felt strong around men, but in that moment I felt lost and could only wish for kindness. Eventually, he turned and left. After a lot of effort, I managed to get to the front door, locked it, and secured the chain. Then I slowly walked to our bedroom, locked the door, and pushed a dresser in front of it for extra safety. I tried to call for help, but all that came out were whispers. Heck was the first person I could really talk to, and he got to my place in about half an hour. After he filed a report about what happened, he stayed with me. I signed a warrant for Paul's arrest. He spent the night with me, and then a second night after I came back from the hospital. We didn't do anything special. We just kept each other company. I felt so uncomfortable being alone, and every noise reminded me of Paul trying to come back. She looked back into my eyes. I wanted nothing more than to see Paul in jail for a long time at that moment, but after a few days I had to call our kids. They couldn't believe it. I could see how hurt they were. It wasn't just Paul causing the trouble. It was something deeper. I didn't realize how much I had hurt him when he found out. He lost control. That was all it was. Paul wouldn't have acted that way if he were thinking clearly. I hate to say this, but I think he still needs help. He should be somewhere that can support him for both his safety and yours. She shook her head. I can protect myself now. I can hire security, or friends like Heck will make sure he doesn't hurt me again. Why take that chance? You said you care about him like an old family pet. You were planning to leave him anyway. I was. We haven't had a real marriage in a long time. But he didn't leave me. I left him. He hasn't done anything but be the same kind, loving partner he's always been. I worry about breaking his heart. He's young enough to move on. He has friends and people who care about him. He won't be alone. She met my gaze again. I said I was a bad person. I've made mistakes in our relationship, thought about leaving him, and cared deeply for others. I would make him unhappy for a while until he found someone new. Maybe he never will, but I don't want to send him to prison. I don't want to ruin his job so he can't get his life back on track. I don't want to see his life fall apart and watch him lose the respect of our kids. I'm not a good person, but I'm not that bad. She looked into my eyes, and I looked into hers. It should have been a warm, human moment. That is touching, I finally said. She didn't reply. A woman has mixed feelings for her husband. She falls out of love and starts a separate life that keeps him out, planning to end their relationship when the kids are grown. Still, there is a part of her that cares, showing she doesn't want to completely ruin his life. That is deep. Nothing is that simple, but I suppose that sums it up. Debbie didn't treat you well, but maybe there is still some care left for you. So it isn't impossible. I could say she isn't exactly like you, but it's not worth comparing, especially if you're being honest. She gave me a questioning look. Maybe. You don't believe me? I'm not sure, to be honest. I want to. It's an interesting story. The romantic side of me wants to believe it. But if you're being truthful, or mostly truthful, you are a clever woman who gets what she wants. You've been in charge, and it seems you didn't respect your husband much until the day things nearly went wrong. I believe you about that day because it matches what the first officers reported. Your husband scared you that day, and I think you truly felt like your life was at risk. Anyone would feel shaken by that. Since then, things have been out of your control, and they still are. Paul is still out there, and he might get out of jail. If he does, he will still be a shadow over you. A woman who is used to being in charge might struggle with uncertainty. She looked at me, appearing unsure about my direction, but she had always been good at keeping her feelings hidden. You could try to reach him in jail, but I think he will be tough to handle. Hiring someone to help leaves clues, and you're smart enough not to put yourself at risk like that. She bit her lip nervously. But if you could get him out and things turned bad again, you could make sure it's the last time. You could have someone like Heck with you to keep things in check. Even the most dangerous people can be faced. Afterward, you'd have witnesses who could say it was self-defense, maybe even a police officer, which would make your case stronger. I held her hand for a moment. She looked into my eyes. Then you wouldn't need to worry about him again. You could tell your children that their father lost control, and you were just lucky to have someone there to help. She pulled her hand away. It must be hard to live in your world, she said. It's reality, Mrs. Donnelly. Is there anything I can say or do to show you that my story is true? I'm not perfect, but I'm not a bad person. No, the issue is that you are very skilled at playing your role, and you are very clever. She shook her head in disbelief. We are at a standstill. You don't know what I'm planning or why I did what I did, but Paul will still get out, or your friend's marriage will fall apart. I'll do whatever it takes to make it happen, even if it means going to great lengths. I leaned back and signaled to the waiter nearby. After he poured another cup of strong coffee and walked away, I took a sip. It was hot enough to sting my mouth, just how I liked it. I'm going to try to help him get out if I can convince him to leave. He might not agree. I will do my best, but if my worries are right and Paul gets in trouble or worse, I'll hold you responsible. Nothing will happen to him, Mr. Maitland, not because of me. Those rumors about me being dangerous are not true, but others have faced problems for underestimating me. I took another sip of my coffee. The warm drink felt nice, especially with the unexpected chill of October in Jacksonville. I could complicate things for you, Paula, but that would take more effort than I want to spend right now. If my situation changes, I might think differently. So if something happens to him and you think you're safe, just remember, I'll be keeping an eye on things. I'll be right behind you, waiting for you to make a mistake. Everyone slips up eventually. I won't forget that, and I will stay alert. If you're using me in any way, I can't bear the weight of someone's fate on my mind. I set down my coffee cup and stood up. Goodbye, Mrs. Donnelly. I hope this is the last time we see each other. Mr. Maitland. Bill. I was about to leave, but her voice made me pause. She stood up, and it felt good to be the taller one for once. She adjusted her blouse and spoke calmly. I'm not who you think I am, Bill, and I'm not doing what you believe. I know you doubt me, but time will show the truth. Nothing will happen to Paul. She gave me one last look, and I turned to go, determined not to look back. It doesn't mean more than that. Oh, I think it does. She walked around the table and stood close to me. She gently touched my lower lip with her finger. It felt different than when Myra had done something similar, but it still made me uneasy. You are one of the good ones, Bill. Everything I learned about you showed me that you were genuine and honest man who tries to do the right thing. You were loyal to your wife, strived to be a good father, and worked hard as a prosecutor. You followed the rules. But... She smiled, her lips painted in a deep shade. I could see how someone like Dave might have been drawn to her. Every good person has a dark side, Bill. You can't be that great without some struggles inside. Your father left you, and as a child, you didn't grasp the ideas of duty and honor. You simply felt alone. Then there was Debbie, the woman you loved who let you down. That must have hurt. She was lovely while you felt ordinary. Your children chose her in the end. How did that affect you inside? Not how you appeared to others, but how you truly felt. After Debbie, you found someone else you cared for, but she went back to her husband, even after he had hurt her. You must have wondered why you couldn't keep her, just like with Debbie. She uncovered every wound I had kept hidden, revealing my insecurities. I realized there were tears in my eyes, but I managed to smile at her. You're good, and your team is careful. You found a lot of my past in just a few days. But despite everything you've said, I still know who I am. She smiled back. I know I hit a nerve, but part of you wants to respond. I promise you I won't harm Paul, and soon you'll see I'm telling the truth. She moved closer, but with my back to the kitchen, I didn't think anyone could see what was happening. She brushed her fingers lightly along my arm, a gentle touch that sent a chill through me. You're a good person, and I have my faults. Deep down, you might find me interesting, and I feel the same about you. I understand the complexities at play here, but there's a side of me that seeks connection. I will always be here. I'll give you my number so you can reach me anytime, no matter where I am. We can talk and share our thoughts. I know you have feelings you need to express, and I'm here to listen. Please be honest with me, and I promise to be here for you. I stood there, trying to stay calm, feeling a rush of emotions. She looked down but smiled a little, satisfaction in her eyes. You might think that you won't reach out, and maybe you won't. But time can change things, and I believe you will contact me someday. I'll be waiting. I walked out of the restaurant and got into my car, heading towards the jail. I could have sorted through my thoughts better, but I let them swirl around. I thought about the woman I had just stepped away from. I had always found Paul Donnelly to be quite intimidating, but his wife left me almost speechless. I tried to tell myself that when I found her message on my phone, I would delete it and not look back, and I would. October 10th, 2005, Monday, 6 p.m. I sat down in a chair in front of Paul Donnelly's cell. Red Butler was officially off duty, but I had asked him as a favor to stay, and he came with me to Donnelly's cell. Donnelly was on his cot, waiting for me. They told me the judge has dismissed the $1 million bail and dropped the charges? Yes, the bail was dropped. The original charges have been replaced with a simple assault. There's a $5,000 bond, but it's on your own word, so all you have to do is sign and you can leave. I'm here to support you, in case you choose to leave and not come back. It's your choice. Why, Maitland? I told you I wanted to stay here. No matter what, I don't want to hurt anyone, and I can't stand the thought of what my children will go through if anything happens. How do you heal from something so sad? They would carry that pain forever. I stood and moved closer to the cell bars, signaling for Butler to step aside, but the microphone still picked up every word. Letting you out is my choice. I've heard both your story and hers, and I don't think you should stay here. More than that, I have to think about everything involved. I have to consider keeping you here to protect your wife versus what might happen if I keep you locked up when I think the reason is not fair. This isn't just about you and her. There are other people affected, and they could be hurt if you stay here for what seems to be an unfair reason. Do I understand correctly, Maitland, that you want me to sign those papers and leave? You believe that's best for everyone? Yes. I truly believe you can find help to get back on your feet. I think you can return to your job because my office will make it clear that there are no official charges, and there won't be a record except that the police responded to a call about a disturbance. The institution could choose to let you go, but since the charges are being dropped and you have no criminal record, I don't see why you can't go back. But you personally want me out? I'm making a professional choice, but yes, I would feel bad about keeping someone innocent locked up. He rubbed his chin. Do you know what could happen because of this? I understand the situation better than you might think, but I don't believe staying here will help. He stood up and started putting the books into a bag, likely the one Tucker used to bring them in. Once he had everything he needed, including a toothbrush and toiletries, he nodded at me. Red Butler and I walked with him to the front desk where he collected his things, signed some papers, and handed them to a woman from the bonding agency just a short walk away. I followed him to the back of the jail. Gil Tucker was leaning against a black SUV in the parking lot nearby. He watched us as we stood on the raised area leading to the jail's entrance. Are you giving in to her pressure? He asked. I had to make a choice, and I felt there were no other options. There are too many people, a husband, a father, children who would hurt if you stayed here. And you gave in to her? That doesn't sound like the Maitland I've heard about. If I truly believed you would harm her or she would harm you, I wouldn't make this choice, not even for a friend. But I can't see what will happen next. I looked into his dark eyes and saw no sign of the worry that had been there before. You might not understand the risks, Maitland. You don't know what I could turn into. I will try to keep my distance from her, but I can't promise she won't come after me. I've learned a lot in the past month. She has much more money and power than I ever thought. She isn't the woman I've known for 20 years. I think she will pursue me, and when I see her again... Paul, I don't know you well. You and your wife seem like the most unusual and frightening people I've met. But I do know this. You've been a good citizen for at least 20 years. You've raised 2 children. You have friends who care about you. You were willing to lose your freedom to help your wife's life. I don't know what you did when you were younger or how tough it was for you, but I can see the Paul Donnelly standing here today. I'm looking at a man who is ready to give everything for his wife and kids. He has a friend who stands by him. I don't think someone truly bad would act this way or have a friend like Gil Tucker. I pointed to Tucker. Go with him and try to clear your mind. Get some professional help. Maybe you tried before, but it's clear you need some support now. If you want, I can recommend a good counselor. Call my office and I'll give you his name. If I contact him, I believe he will want to help you. Oh, and be careful. If you decide to meet her, make sure to take a friend with you. She needs to know you won't meet her alone. He just looked at me, then shook his head. No, even now, I won't believe that. No matter how much she's changed, she wouldn't act that way. I reached out my hand, and after a moment he shook it. His handshake felt strong and genuine. Good luck, Paul. He walked toward Gil Tucker when I said, Do you remember what you told me that day in Baker's office? He looked back at me with curiosity. We always have a choice. You have a choice. I hope you choose wisely. He nodded, and I saw Tucker give him a supportive gesture before they left. They were gone, and I hoped I would never see or hear the name Paul Donnelly again. I wished the same for Paula Donnelly, but I had mixed feelings about that. Second Acts, October 14th, 2005, Friday, 7 p.m. My name is William Maitland. I am the official second-in-command and the unofficial lead prosecutor for the Tri-County area of Duval, Clay, and Nassau counties in Northeast Florida. I work to hold people accountable for their actions and try to fix the problems they create in their own lives and in the lives of others. For the last 6 months, I have felt that the problems I have caused in my life since I became a prosecutor might be too big to fix. On the bright side, I have survived tough moments and found that it is possible to make real connections even after going through hard times. I have learned that we can have new beginnings in our lives. I have faced many difficult challenges, including the ones within myself. It's becoming harder to believe that I am as good and honest as I thought I was, but I remind myself that I am trying. Right now, I feel a bit cold as I leave the courthouse and walk toward my car parked nearby. The weather in Jacksonville has turned from unusually hot to chilly in just a week, and the temperature has already dropped to the 50s, expected to fall into the 40s by evening. It might not feel too cold for someone from the north, but for someone who has lived in Florida most of my life, it feels chilly. I dressed carefully, wearing a nice black sweater with dress pants and shoes, like my friend Austin always suggested to help me look professional. I brought an electric razor with me and shaved before leaving. I also used some cologne, thinking I looked presentable enough. I thought about stopping by my place for a quick shower, but I had a meeting with Myra at 7:30 p.m. I knew she was a good person, but I was worried that if I kept missing our meetings, she might start to get upset. I should have left earlier, but there were always important last-minute tasks to handle. I was still working to delay Sutton's trial until Wilbur Bell could recover from a heart attack that was serious enough to have ended his life. He was a strong old guy, and I wanted him to be able to walk into the courtroom for Sutton's trial. He would testify that he had seen Sutton leaving his mother's home in Ocala on the night Sutton's wife and unborn son were harmed. I had recorded his testimony, but being in person was always more powerful than video. Meanwhile, our office was keeping a close watch on the plans to put a Mexican cartel leader on trial. No one else had faced danger recently, but there was a feeling in the air like before a thunderstorm. The federal agents were being very secretive about their plans for the trial. On the horizon, I noticed the ongoing legal strategies for the trial of Bobby Kelso, a smart finance guy from New York. This would be a major event no matter where it took place. It was not every day that a Wall Street professional got involved in a plot against his wife and her friend, only to change his mind and save them both at the last moment, even taking a bullet meant for her friend. However, because of what happened during his change of heart, he was facing trial for a serious crime. This case had everything: love, money, and drama. TV executives were probably excited just thinking about how high the ratings would be for his trial. If it came my way, I could only imagine how much media attention it would attract. I might have to stay at the courthouse the whole time, but I honestly hoped the case wouldn't land on my desk. Although I was concerned about the cartel trial, I wouldn't hesitate to see a drug dealer face justice. I had strong doubts about sending a man to prison, especially when his wife had pushed him too far and he still ended up making the right choice in the end. I could see myself in him. I never meant to hurt anyone, but if things had turned out differently, who knows what could have happened? Every day, I kept waiting to hear about Paul Donnelly's body being found, or some awful news about him and Paula. I wasn't sure how I would cope if I found out I made a terrible mistake. So far, things were okay. They had both disappeared back into their quiet lives. I had called Gil Tucker once, and he told me that Donnelly was handling things one day at a time. He hadn't contacted Dr. Teller, but I still hoped he would. As I got into my vehicle, I tried to push those thoughts away. In 30 minutes, I would finally arrive at Myra's condo and see her outside of the courthouse for the first time. Even now, I couldn't understand what she saw in me. If you took away the attention that came from being a grieving daughter's words after her father's passing and a reporter's buzz, I was just a 42-year-old man, short, bald, and divorced. Still, I was glad she noticed something in me. Maybe if we got to know each other better, she could help me see it too. I thought about her smile and those lovely green eyes when suddenly I heard a police siren. Looking in my rearview mirror, I spotted flashing blue lights. Great, what now? I checked my speedometer and saw I was going 60 in a 55 miles per hour zone on I-295. I really didn't want anything to delay my chance to meet Myra away from our courthouse lives. I pulled over to the side of the road and kept the engine running. Sometimes, showing my state attorney ID helped, though not always. The deputy barely had the car parked before he stepped out and walked quickly toward me. I started to feel curious. This officer wasn't acting like someone just doing a regular traffic stop. Mr. Maitland? Yes? Chief Martin asked if you could let me quote him, "Get your head out of the clouds and turn your phone on." Someone up there wasn't on my side. I never turned my phone off, but this one time in all the years I worked at the state attorney's office, I did. I thought that taking one night for myself wouldn't change anything, and just when I tried to have a little peace, they sent a police officer with lights and sirens to find me. It didn't seem fair. I took my phone out of my pocket and pressed the power button. As soon as the screen lit up, the Cranberries' Linger played, and I answered the call. Maitland. Martin, what's going on? You know I left a message with the office that Brandon was taking my calls tonight. I appreciate the concern, but unless something huge has happened, I'm really off duty. Did you hear about the event this morning? Which one? I know there was a shooting on Jamas and a body was found far off San Jose. It was a busy day, but... Jacksonville is a great place to live, not like Detroit, but it certainly had its share of crime. I never understood how we could outdo Miami when it came to crime rates, but my hometown had seen more incidents than other big cities. While our consolidated county was much larger in area than most, we still had our problems. 2 homicide reports in one day is notable, but there had been many worse days since I joined the state attorney's office. Why was Martin calling me about one incident on my time off? Did you get any details? No. I heard we didn't have an ID yet, and it has been a busy day. I thought I would hear about this eventually. We took action early on and kept it quiet while we checked everything before saying anything. The car was found in a wooded area behind that Walmart shopping center, which hasn't been built yet. Some kids who skipped school looked inside and then got scared and called their parents. What did they find in there? A man who had passed away, likely in his 30s or early 40s. He was Hispanic and dressed fairly well. The medical examiner said he had probably been gone for a couple of days. It looks like he was killed somewhere else, and then the body and the car were left there last night. Did they figure out how he died? The medical examiner mentioned a few possibilities, but it seemed clear he had been hurt badly. Hurt how? He had a couple of wounds, and there were signs of a struggle. The examiner believes he was likely alive when he was injured, or at least at the beginning. That sounds terrible. It is, especially for that poor man. They placed him in the seat and set the scene in a very unsettling way. Next to a bag where they put the evidence after the incident. It doesn't seem like a regular theft. This isn't about someone getting angry at another person. No, this was a planned operation by professionals. How can you tell? We had to work with federal authorities to identify him, and we found out he was linked to a crime group. He had a partner we haven't found yet, but the body might eventually turn up in the St. Johns River. A crime group? The crime group? Yes, the group that has Mendoza facing trial, assuming the authorities can find the right location. A feeling of unease started to settle in. Why did you ask an officer to stop me to share this? When we searched the car, we found some belongings, including items related to that crime group and some personal things, and some photographs. What kind of photographs? At first, we weren't sure. There were photos that looked like they were taken at a school, showing a child's face. Then we found clearer pictures of the same child on the school grounds, moving around and getting into a car. That raised red flags. Who is the child? I asked. We figured it out when we saw a better image of the woman who picked him up after school. And who was she? The woman was your ex-wife, Debbie. The boy is your son. His words faded as I tried to grasp what he was saying. I thought of my son as a little boy taking his first steps toward Debbie with joy. I wished my own father could have seen that moment. Mr. Maitland. The officer lightly tapped my arm. Are you okay? I refocused on the call. One of our detectives, who was watching a game with his son, recognized your boy. When we made the connection, we tried to call you, but there was no answer. We also tried to reach Miss Bascom, but she wasn't available. We don't have your children's contact info, so units are headed to your home now. Can't you get in touch with Debbie? I asked. Unfortunately, no. We only just started looking about 15 or 20 minutes ago. She might be out shopping without her phone or might be busy with something else. We don't know. A sudden ache hit my chest. I realized it was a strong reaction. I had felt fear before, but this was something else. It was like watching a huge wave building in the distance. I knew I had to act fast or I would freeze. I'm going home, Martin. I'll meet the teams there. Send them to be cautious and take action if anyone looks suspicious. I hung up and said to the young deputy, I'll be driving fast, so hold on. Can you please turn on your lights and stay behind me with your siren? Just 30 seconds later, a blue light was flashing on the Escalade. I was speeding, moving quickly toward Debbie's house, with a police car following behind me. While I drove with one hand, I tried calling her, but it rang and rang. Frustrated, I called Roy's home. It rang 4 times, then Kathy answered. Hello? Kathy, is Kelly there? Bill? What's going on? Kathy, is Kelly with you? No. Where is she? I think she had plans. She wrote down a number for a friend's house. They were going to meet their boyfriends and go to a party. Please call that number, Kathy. Tell Kelly there's an emergency. She needs to come back. Don't let her say no. Tell her to come back now. But what should I say? Don't say anything else. Just tell her to get back right away. I'll explain when she returns and ask if she knows where BJ is. Is Roy there? A moment later, I heard Roy's voice. Bill? What's going on? Roy, do you have a gun? There was a pause. Yes, I have a .38 in my bedroom. Get it out and go find Kelly if she needs a ride. Make sure she comes home. Call the police and tell them you're my father-in-law. They need to send help to your place. Keep your doors locked until you see the officers and don't let anyone in without showing ID. If anyone else shows up and tries to come in, be careful. Don't warn them. Just take action. Bill, what's happening? I can't explain, Roy. Not right now. Just do it. Call for help. I tried calling Debbie's cell again and then her house phone. Worried thoughts flooded my mind and I couldn't push them away. On the 8th ring, I finally heard, "Hi, Bill, is that you?" A wave of relief washed over me. Debbie, why haven't you answered your phone? I was in the bath. For more than 35 minutes? Honestly, Bill? I'm sorry, Deb, I've been trying to reach you for a while. Okay, I didn't mean to snap. The kids are out, and believe it or not, I'm just watching TV and eating ice cream. It's been a long week, so I took a nice bath. Debbie, listen carefully. Are the doors locked? Yes, why? Don't ask questions. Is the gun in the safe? Is it ready to use? Yes. Go straight to the safe, but check your surroundings when you leave the bathroom. If you see or hear anything strange or if you feel uneasy, get back in the bathroom and lock the door. Cover the mirror with a chair and stay away from it. Bill, what's happening? Just listen. It would take too long to explain. If you think it's safe and no one else is home, open the safe and get the gun. Bring the home phone and your cell back to the bathroom. If you see anyone who isn't in uniform or me, take care of yourself. Don't hesitate. Make sure they show you ID. You're really making me nervous. Good, that's the point. Staying alert could keep you safe. Now, where is BJ? BJ? Bill? Where is he? He was going to Tommy Wilson's house to hang out and maybe watch a movie. I felt a strange feeling at the mention of the name, a reminder of how he'd made friends since I moved out of his life. Call the Wilsons. If he's still there, tell him to stay put and call me back. Get the gun, then call the Wilsons. If he's there, let me know right away. Hurry. Bill, don't talk, just move. I ended the call and dialed Martin again. Send uniformed officers to my place and my in-laws. I told them to be careful with anyone who isn't in uniform, and your team should be ready to show ID. They should reach your ex's house shortly. Share the in-laws' address, and I'll make sure someone is there in 15 minutes. I had just missed a few near accidents in the last moments, but the flashing lights and sirens helped guide me as I approached San Jose, heading towards my old home. My phone rang. It was Debbie. I have the gun, and Officer Suggs is here. I've seen him at the courthouse and the police station. I let him inside. Let them handle everything, but stay away from the windows. Keep the gun close. Have you called the Wilsons yet? No, I was just... Hang up and call them, Deb. As soon as you confirm BJ's safe, call me back. My phone rang again, and it was Martin's voice. Slow down, Maitland. Rutledge says you're going too fast and almost hit a bunch of cars. You're getting close to neighborhoods. Our officers are there, and no one is getting to your ex. Don't risk your safety. I forced myself to ease up, slowing down to 60 and then 50 as I neared my old residence. I even stopped for red lights. As I got close, my phone rang again. Kathy Bascom said, Roy is on his way to pick up Kelly. A police officer just called here, and I told him where Roy was going and described his car. They said they would meet Roy and bring him back safely. Thank you, Kathy, and please say thanks to Roy for me. I'll call you in a few minutes with an update. In the meantime, stay close to the officers on the way. Bill, this is frightening. Is this really happening? I don't know, Kathy. I hope it turns out to be a false alarm, but please be careful. 3 police cars were already parked on the street in front of the house, with officers checking both the front and back. Neighbors were coming out of their homes, and the police waved them back inside. I pulled into the driveway and was out of the car before the engine stopped. Two officers set up a barrier in front of me as I held out my state attorney ID. I paused just long enough for them to take a quick look, then moved around them as they nodded back, giving me the response I needed. As I entered, a wave of familiarity washed over me, causing me to stop for a moment. I had only been here twice in the last 6 months, and both times had been tough. Still, being back felt comforting, urging me to head toward the den. She came out dressed casually in shorts and a light blue top. Her hair was wet and hanging down her back. Memories rushed in, but I tried to stay present. "Bill." She stepped into my arms and I held her tight, feeling her warmth. After a brief moment, I gently pulled her back to see her face. "Why?" Tears sparkled in her eyes. "I was just relieved to see you safe, Debbie. I talked to the Wilsons. I asked them to keep BJ with their son until the police get here. Now you need to tell me what's going on." I filled her in. She swayed a little, and I instinctively held her elbows to support her. "Oh my God, you're sure they were watching BJ? The police confirmed you and BJ were seen. It was probably at Mandarin High. They were keeping an eye on him and maybe both of you." She closed her eyes for a moment, taking in what I had said. "No, not BJ. Is this—" "I can't think of any other explanation, Debbie. Someone told me that the leader of the Mexican cartel is worried about things getting worse here. This might be a warning, maybe even a way to scare me about the safety of you and Kelly after BJ. I can't say for sure." "The Mexican cartel? Bill, what are you saying?" I realized that not everyone in the courthouse knew what was happening, so I explained more clearly. "I can't believe this, Bill. Why didn't you tell me? I should have had a chance to prepare for—" "For what, Debbie? There's no sign that the trial is coming here. I heard that some people in Mexico don't want to bring their problems here, but I didn't have any clear information until today. Should I tell you there might be a danger to you and the kids? That could make you worry every time you can't reach them on their phones or when they go out with friends. Do you really want to live with that fear? What if you wanted to move away from Jacksonville? Where would you go where they couldn't find you? How could I keep you safe or even know if you were in trouble if you were in another city or state?" She looked at me and quietly asked, "Why did you join the state attorney's office, Bill? You could have been making good money elsewhere, and we'd be together without worrying all the time." I thought it was the right choice back then. Honestly, there have been many moments over the past 6 months where I wished I had chosen differently. This time, she hugged me. Despite everything, it felt nice. Then she pulled back. "BJ and Kelly should be here soon. What do we do now?" "You stay here, Debbie. It's easier to keep you safe in one place. I think your parents should come for the weekend, too. If it's okay with you, I'll stay here as well. The police will look into what those two were up to, and we'll see if the federal agents can help us understand what they wanted and if there is a real threat." "But if they were here to scare us, who caused that incident? And why?" I couldn't tell her my thoughts yet. I had an idea, but I needed to make sure Debbie, Kelly, and BJ were safe and had enough protection before I went back to work. I needed to ensure my own safety as well. "Do you have any coffee?" "Some." "Is any made?" "No." "You used to love coffee. I only drink it at Starbucks." We shared a look and she replied, "I still have some. I could make some coffee." "Was Doug into coffee?" "No, you. Can we call a truce? If you want to know, Clint loved coffee any time. Will you be upset about him too?" "No, Debbie. I'm sorry for bringing up Doug. Old habits are hard to break." "Old feelings too, but a pot of coffee would help." The phone rang, and when I picked it up, I heard Myra's voice. Debbie heard it too. "Bill, please tell me the traffic is bad, and that's why you're not outside my door." "I wish I could, Myra, but something came up." The silence was long, and I could hear her breathing. Debbie looked at me, and I could tell her anger was fading. When I looked back at her, what I saw was something I didn't quite understand. "I'll start that pot of coffee, Bill," she said, turning to go to the kitchen. Was that her? Yes. There was a chill in the air. "You're at her house when we were supposed to go out tonight." "Yes." Then the line went silent. I called her again. It rang until her voicemail came on. "Myra, please pick up or call me back. I'll keep calling tonight, and I'll come by to explain. Please let me. There's an emergency. I would never have left you otherwise. Call me back." I waited for what felt like a long time. Finally, she called me back. "I'm sorry, Bill. I'm just worried. When you said you were there, I felt uneasy." "It's okay. Things have been busy, and I didn't have a chance to call. Here's what happened." I told her everything. "Oh, Bill, I didn't know. So BJ and Kelly are safe and on their way back to your old place?" "Yeah, but we still don't know everything, so I'll stay here with Debbie and the kids for now. I believe they are safer here than if I took them somewhere else, and I can't leave them alone. I'll sleep on the couch, but you don't need to explain. They are your kids. She was your wife. You'll stay there to protect them. I understand. We can meet up later. It's okay. We'll have another chance, and someday we can laugh about this." "I can't see it, Myra, but I hope. I messed up our plans, and I'm sorry." "Not as sorry as I am. I'll grab a snack or catch a movie. You take care of your family. I'll talk to you later, Bill. Bye." I went into the kitchen where Debbie was making coffee and getting some milk from the fridge. I liked flavored creams in my coffee, but it seemed Clint preferred his black. I would have to get used to that. She took a coffee cup from the cupboard and, without looking at me, said, I hate to keep saying I'm sorry. I don't know why I feel this way. We're divorced, and you know I've been with other people. There's no reason I should feel upset about you being with someone else, except that Myra annoys me. No, I'm just jealous of you and her together. I remember how you felt about certain things before Aline, and I worry that if you're with Myra, it will be hard for you to move on." She looked up from the coffee maker and stared at me. "Why are we so complicated, Bill? Other divorced couples can be friendly and move on. Why can't we do that?" "I don't know, Debbie, except that I still care about you. No matter how much I try to hide it, I can't. And I think you wouldn't feel so upset if you didn't have some feelings for me, too." She raised her hands with a questioning look. "So what do we do now?" One step would have brought me closer to her. A second step could have brought back memories of the past. But with everything happening around you, our kids, the police things were complicated. I couldn't let my feelings take control. My mind was filled with too many thoughts, memories, and past events. "Nothing," I replied to her question. I then stepped into the den, hoping for some clarity. After about 10 minutes, she returned with a cup of coffee. I drank it while answering calls from different people involved in the situation. A short while later, Kelly entered with Roy and Kathy. I seated them in the den with Debbie, while 2 police officers waited just outside. I explained what was happening. Kathy looked shocked and covered her mouth, and Roy offered her some comfort. Debbie reached out to Kelly. "We're not sure what's happening right now or if there's a real danger to BJ or any of us, but we cannot take risks. These situations can change quickly." "Do you know when we'll find out if there's a real threat?" Roy asked. "The sheriff's office is looking into it. They've contacted federal authorities, and our sources in Mexico are trying to gather information. If this is a real threat, we should know soon, which will help us prepare. If it's just meant to scare us, we'll figure that out too. I wished I could share that I might have some reliable information, more than what the federal agencies had." Just then, BJ walked in with 2 officers, his friend, and the Wilsons. Debbie hugged him tightly until he shouted, "Mom!" and she finally let him go. Moments later, Kelly tried to hug him too, but he gently pushed her away. "You all act like I disappeared. What's going on?" I filled him in on the situation. He looked shocked and asked, "They were watching me? Taking pictures? Are you serious?" "Serious enough that 1 man is dead, and maybe 2 if we ever find his body." "What do you think they wanted to do?" I told him and the others about what had happened to the families of the Texas prosecutors. He looked a bit scared, and I got why. Things like this didn't happen in our lives. Mr. Wilson asked, "What will happen to us?" "You will go home with a police escort. I'll also talk to see if we can have an officer stay at your house. This extra protection will cost a lot, but I'll look into federal help to cover some of it. Since it's a federal issue, they might be taken to state court, which is often easier for getting a severe punishment in places like Florida or Texas." "But can't you see what you just mentioned about those families? How can you say we won't need help?" "I'm sure your family could be at risk, but I don't think you will be. Even the cartels can't hurt everyone linked to their targets. You really don't need to worry much, and that's why I think you should head home and not stay here." Once they left, we agreed that the Bascoms would stay with us over the weekend. While we were together, I called Knight and Edwards, asking them to send some officers to watch over my mother's house this weekend, too. I reached out to Mom and Charles to let them know what was going on. I told them I didn't believe the cartel would reach that far, but it was better to be safe. Bill, you take care of Kelly, BJ, and Debbie, and watch yourself, too. I've already lost. I know, Mom. I'll be careful. It had been over 30 years, yet that day was clear in her mind. Nothing would ever change that. I briefly wondered if it upset Charles to know his wife once loved another man so much, but they seemed to be happy together. With everything arranged, I told Debbie and the kids that I needed to head back to the office. I didn't go into detail. I just said it was important. Be careful, Dad, Kelly said, coming over to hug me. Debbie surprised everyone by hugging me too. Remember, you're not unstoppable, she said when she stepped back. I'll remember that. I'll be back in a couple of hours. It was nearly 10 p.m. when I left in a police car with another officer riding along. Knight and Edwards both wanted extra coverage for security. This isn't just for you, Bill, Austin told me before I stepped out. You represent this office and the justice system. We won't allow anyone to challenge our work again. The courthouse felt strange at night, as it always does. A lone light in the dark, bright lights creating strong shadows. Miller and Costa, the officers with me, got out of their cars first to check the area in front of the courthouse. They then called in the cleanup crews to unlock the front doors for us. A few of them quietly crossed themselves as I walked by. My reputation was growing. We took the elevator to the top floor with both officers going ahead. I made them wait outside my office while I unlocked the drawer in my desk that held the old man's special phone. I dialed his number and waited as it rang. I knew he probably wasn't waiting for my call since I hadn't called him often before. I didn't say anything. He would know it was me. It was 10:45 when I got home. As I expected, everyone was still awake, watching TV, browsing the internet, listening to music, or in the case of Kathy, Roy, and Debbie, just chatting. I walked in, and the atmosphere was only awkward for a few moments. In 10 minutes, we had settled into the cozy living room with coffee, tea, and the delicious chocolate chip cookies that Kathy made so well. There were quiet glances that suggested unspoken thoughts were lingering. As we talked about my recent projects, carefully avoiding the topic of the Donnelly situation, Debbie started sharing stories about leading a team of young lawyers. There was laughter, and it almost felt like the good old times. Then Kathy gave me a knowing look, and I quietly shook my head. I thought Debbie and her father might not notice, but their exchanged glances showed they did. That was the challenge of coming out of a long relationship. It was tough to hide your true feelings. I always thought you chose the wrong path, Debbie, Roy said. You should have gone to law school like Bill. She looked at me, and her tone was free of any bitterness or regret, even though I had expected otherwise. Maybe, but my main focus was supporting Bill while he was in law school. We both knew he would be the one to earn more money. I never regretted my choice to work at the bank. It actually helped me when I later chose to teach business. I glanced at her, wondering if she felt the same way now. She had spent 5 years supporting me while I advanced in my job and took care of our little girl, trying to maintain happiness in our home. Things had worked out all right, but I wondered if she might regret putting my career first. At 11:30 p.m., Roy yawned and reached for Kathy's hand, saying, "Come on, I need some sleep." She smiled at him and replied, "I don't?" "Never," he said, and the way he looked at her showed they were a solid couple, while BJ had his own space to sleep. There were 2 beds in his room, which we had set up a few years ago for hosting friends, but I had my doubts about whether Kelly and BJ were placed together. As Roy helped Kathy stand up, and they looked at each other, I felt a strong wave of emotion. They were who I had always imagined Debbie and I would be in another 20 years, but now, that future would not happen. When they left the room, Debbie shot them a glance that made me think she was feeling something similar. There was clear sadness in her eyes. "Did you find out anything?" I asked. "No. Everyone is still looking into things. If I learn anything, you'll be the first to know." "I promise," she replied. She stood up, leaving with her usual grace. "I'm going upstairs to try to get some sleep. Will you be okay down here?" she asked. "I always have been," I answered. She turned to leave, then paused and faced me again. "They told me it wasn't easy for you to get here tonight. "I appreciate that you cared enough," she said. "Being divorced doesn't change everything, Debbie," I said softly. We looked at each other for a moment. There were so many things I wanted to say, but the words did not come. After she left, I sank into the couch and turned on the television. The local news was finished, so I switched to CNN to check the headlines, then changed to Fox. I listened to the reports of the world's problems and felt the house around me, alive with memories. It felt like part of me. Every corner was connected to my past. By staying away, I had kept the memories from surfacing. It was almost like all of this had happened in another life. Yet, it was still my life. I had started to tell myself that this old life was behind me and that I was adjusting to being single. I had started to believe that there would be a time when I could look at Debbie without remembering the way I felt when I first saw her and fell in love. But, like in a movie, I was drawn back into a situation I wanted to escape. The evening had begun with me feeling like a stable single man, admiring a woman I didn't know well. It ended with me as a divorced father, feeling lonely and distanced from everything I once valued. I was on the couch, as I had been many times, when the old man's phone rang. It had been ringing for a little while, but I woke up enough to answer it. "Mr. Maitland, I'm sorry I was away on business. Did I wake you?" "Yes, but I appreciate your call back. I think I understand why you're calling. I'm not surprised. I assume something happened to that man, and you likely know where we should look for his partner. He is no longer around fresh waters, but is instead with the saltwater ones, whatever is left of him. Sharks do not leave much behind." "What's happening?" "I have an idea, but I need you to confirm what my family is facing. Both of them worked for the cartel. They had been watching your son for 3 days. "Why were they following him?" "It was meant to scare you. They didn't plan to do anything serious. Their goal was just to make sure that pictures of your son and wife reached the police, along with some vague threats. They wanted to keep you focused on worrying about your family so that you would avoid getting involved with them." "How can you be so confident?" "My team saw them, and after taking care of one matter, they addressed another. After a long talk, they felt sure the last worker was truthful in what he said. He thought this was just a mind game. But usually, lower-level workers do not know much about the rules. However, after we spoke with the two men, some of my team reached out to members of the cartel. Until then, they did not know we were looking into this. Once we made our interest clear, they said it was just a trick to be careful. After we recently talked, the cartel representatives promised me that no one from their side would threaten or approach anyone you care about. Do you trust them?" There was a long pause. I worried he might see my question as doubting his honesty. My work and the work of the organization come with a lot of stories and assumptions, but in the end, we are just businesses. We must be strong because that is how things are. If we are not, we could get into a lot of trouble. But if you look at the core, every business is there to help others and make money. Problems cause issues for our work. They make it hard to serve our customers and can chase away clients. This leads to losing resources and can attract unwanted attention from the law. If that happens, we could lose important people and face big money troubles. Groups like ours usually play it safe when dealing with powerful officials. Some areas have seen people act too boldly, and that changes how they work elsewhere. They might not worry about getting in trouble with the law, but we are not a government. Our team made it clear. Any harmful action against you or your friends will bring about a strong reaction. Simply put, it would create serious problems for both our groups. This has become personal for me, and it won't stay quiet for long. They won't act against you right away. They will just think carefully about what they might lose. So if the Mendoza situation worries you, I can't guess what they will do, but I can promise you there will be no more threats to you or your family for now. I thought about what he said and then asked, "Does this mean I owe you something now? You didn't ask me to do this. Think of it as a favor. But if you were in my debt, would that be so bad? I wouldn't ask much from you, and with my help, you could do very well." Many politicians have thrived while working with me. As I've said before, I have to say no to your kind offer. That's not surprising. You can rest easy tonight. Your family is not in danger. Before he could hang up, I added, "Unfortunately, the local police won't know the threat is gone, and I can't explain how I know. Can you?" In the next few days, we will have information from sources about the cartel's plans for your son. Your intelligence agencies will get this information. Thank you. Good night, Mr. Maitland. I turned to see Debbie's eyes shining in the dark, catching the light from the hallway. In the low light, I noticed she was wearing a robe. Is that the man you spoke with at the hospital? It's better for you not to know, Debbie. You know I kept secrets from you, Bill, but I've always sensed you had your own secrets. This involves us, me, Kelly, and BJ. Don't you think I deserve to know your secret? I shared everything with her. You would have given up everything you've ever believed in to protect us? I would have done anything to make sure you, Kelly, and BJ were safe. You used to know that. She stared at me for a moment, then turned and left the room without saying a word. I lay back on the couch, which felt molded to my shape, and quickly fell asleep. October 19th, 2005. Wednesday, 2 p.m. I stopped at the desk outside Debbie's office. I didn't recognize her secretary. She was an older woman, likely someone who had been there for a long time. Johnny August was known for never firing anyone. Since he had serious vision problems, he was one of those rare bosses who focused on work quality instead of how people looked. Mr. Maitland, I'm sorry. We didn't know you were coming. Is Miss Bascom expecting you? No, I just need to talk to her about something. Could you ask her if she has a few minutes? Yes, sir. A moment later, I heard Debbie's voice, and she opened the door with a curious look on her face. Mr. Maitland, Connie said you wanted to speak with me. Can I come in? She acted surprised, but then smiled a little. Of course. Please, come in. I walked in and stopped at one of the two comfortable chairs in front of her wide mahogany desk, which had her name and title on a plaque. As I looked around, I saw pictures of BJ and Kelly in large frames on her desk, taken recently. A photo of the two of us from our Hawaiian cruise 10 years ago was on the wall behind her chair. I also noticed that her desk and chair were arranged so she would look down at anyone seated in front of her. I knew that was a smart move she learned during her time at the Hunt Bank. She might have given up 5 years of her life, but she gained much more than just how to run a business. She pointed to the picture and said, Everyone knows our story, Bill. There's no reason to hide it, so I just let it be seen by everyone when they walk in. Then she noticed the envelope in my hand. You realize this is the first time since I got here that you've been in my office. Are you here for work, or does it have to do with, you know? No and no. I put the envelope down on her desk, turned to her, and lightly held her wrist. Her eyes widened, but she didn't pull away. I looked into her eyes for a moment before stepping back. Of all the things I expected today, that was the last thing I thought would happen. Why? How? What? You left me speechless, Bill. I needed to know something. What? I needed to know if I could hold you close and then let you go. We exchanged looks, and she reached out a bit but didn't touch me. Sensing her hesitation, I took her hand and helped her sit in one of the chairs next to me. You're not going to change the topic? She asked with a slight smile. You forget, Debbie, you told me about the things you were learning from the hunts. You may not think I was listening, but I was. What are we discussing? Not discussing, Deb. I just thought I should come in and speak with you. I have a lot on my mind, and we haven't really talked since all this began. I know you wanted to, but I just wasn't. In a place where I could be close to you. You must have improved, Bill. She rubbed her lips with her thumb. You got a lot better. A little. But I have to say, it is still hard for me to be here. Then why are you here, Bill? You said it doesn't have anything to do with the cartel. No, I didn't say that exactly, although I understand why you think that. I'm not here because things have changed with the cartel, but what happened over the weekend? It has been on my mind. I don't understand. I couldn't stay still, so I stood up and walked a little away from her, then turned back. I can't say there isn't a part of me that still feels hurt toward you, Debbie. You hurt me deeply, and it took a long time for me to feel okay again. I'll never forget some of the things you said back then or that night when you chose Doug over me. Those memories stay with me, and even now I sometimes find myself thinking about what you and he shared. I could see her eyes narrowing, and I thought anger might show, but she stayed quiet. I know we both played a part in ending our marriage. I know I left you alone, but even though I feel some guilt, I can't help but think you could have tried to make things better. You always had a way of influencing me. You didn't. And that makes me wonder if you wanted to leave. If it hadn't been Doug, it would have been someone else. She leaned back in her chair and ran her hand through her long hair. She didn't have tears, but, well, I've been trying to get you to talk for 6 months, so I guess I should be glad, even if you're using this moment to share your feelings. You deserve to. You've been the one hurt the most. Even though you hurt me for many years before, Doug, if it helps you to say it. I walked back to stand in front of her. I'm not trying to hurt you, Debbie. Even if it may seem that way. I just wanted to talk things out. There's no use pretending that I'm not still hurting. I have wounds that haven't healed and may take time to get better. I want you to know how much you affected me, but that's in the past, and I believe things will improve. Then what? I knelt in front of her and took both her hands in mine. I wanted to know that I could be around you and not feel overwhelmed, that we could be. Maybe not friends, but co-parents. We can share the kids and support each other in raising them, going to their graduations, weddings, and welcoming our grandchildren. I hope we can stay in each other's lives for many years. I didn't want to, but I could feel tears starting. We were married for a long time. We had a good marriage and made good memories. Remember I told you once that you had made it hard to remember the good times? I felt that way then, but with time, I believe I can cherish the good moments again, because we did have some. She looked at me as if she was seeing me for the first time. What happened to you, Bill? I never thought I'd hear you say things like that again. I thought I'd have to wait for years before we could even be kind to each other. I looked at us from a different perspective, Deb. You remember that old movie we loved, It's a Wonderful Life? In it, the main character saw how life would have been if he wasn't there, and I thought about what our lives might have looked like if things were different. I realized just how lucky we are to be who we are. It could have turned out much worse for both of us. What are you talking about, Bill? I told her about Paul and Paula Donnelly. When I talked about what had happened with Dave Brandon, I said, "This has to stay between us, Deb. I might get in trouble for what I did, but that doesn't bother me. I can handle myself, but it would really hurt Dave, his wife, and their marriage." She looked at me with wide eyes and replied, "I don't know what you mean. I didn't hear anything." I told her everything except the last part of my meeting with Paula Donnelly. That part made me uneasy. I hadn't checked the number she left for me, and even though I knew I wouldn't call her, it felt like a heavy weight on my mind. I can't shake the feeling that they once loved each other, maybe as much as we did. Now when I think of them, I picture two scorpions stuck in a bottle. I worry they will hurt each other while trying to escape. They've lost their connection and everything they had, and they will never find it again. I decided I couldn't let that happen to us. We've hurt each other, but we'll move on. Their story is over with no chance for a new beginning. Ours may be closed, but we can find a new beginning. She looked concerned. Bill, I don't know. I'm glad you're finally talking to me. I miss what we had, but the issues we faced make me wonder if we can. I shook my head. Not a new beginning for us together. A fresh start to find new people we can create lives with. I want you to find someone to love and build a life with. Someone who will care for BJ and Kelly. I'm not sure what will happen to me. I don't know if things with Myra will ever get better, but I hope to find someone to share my life with. It won't be the same as what we had. Perhaps it won't be as great as what we once shared, but it will give us both a chance to find happiness again. I don't like thinking about you being alone, and I know I don't want to be alone either. Tears started to flow. Why are you doing this, Bill? Could things get any worse for how I treated you? I didn't think so. Debbie, I always knew it wouldn't last with Doug. Your mom said he was just a passing thing, and I finally believe that. I heard Clint Abbott left you, but there are good guys out there. On the bon chance, I met someone, an insurance guy. We started talking, and he shared something that stuck with me. He said you never know when you'll meet someone new, and you have to be open to it. As long as we are alive, there's a chance to turn your life around. You're too wonderful to be on your own. This time, she got up and walked away from me. She moved behind her desk, her head down for a moment. Then she lifted her gaze and seemed to look 10 years into the past. She recalled our younger selves on the Hawaiian cruise and then focused back on me. There was something about her that drew my eyes to her. Myra might stand out more, but Debbie had her own special charm. That night in the den, if you had reached out, things might have been different. Did you know that? I saw how deeply you cared for me, more than any man I've ever known. You risked so much for me 20 years ago, and you would still stand by me, even with Doug. Why did I ever let you go? I took a deep breath. That's another reason I'm here, Deb. I want to stay a part of your life. Coming back to our house for the first time in 6 months brought back so many memories. Even with our troubles, life was good because I had you and the kids. When I lay on the couch that night after you left, it felt like the last 6 months didn't happen at all. It felt like I had a really bad dream, but it was finally coming to an end, and I hoped to wake up back with you. But I looked at the woman who had always meant so much to me, and a deep sadness washed over me. I wasn't sure I could say what I needed to say. But it wasn't a dream. The last 6 months were real. They happened. You chose him over me at UNF. You turned your back on me. You and he were together while I was going through a tough time. I met Aline, and I grew fond of her at least a little. I discovered that I wasn't as bad at relationships as you had made me believe for so long. Once I would have loved to see how she felt, but now it only added to my sadness. What I felt when I returned to the house that used to be ours, lying on the couch and thinking about our past that was the dream. The reality is that I'm learning to live without you. I'm doing better now than I was 3 months ago, and in a year it won't hurt as much. A part of me will always care for you, but I'm moving on, just like you told me to. A smile appeared on her face through her tears. I guess. We always get what we deserve, don't we? I walked to her desk, opened a manila envelope I had placed there, and handed it to her. What? Just take a quick look before I leave. She took out the papers, wiped her face, and sat down behind the desk. She began to read, glancing up now and then as she continued. Oh, please don't tell me there's something really wrong. What aren't you telling me? I'm not dying, and I don't know anything about the cartel's plans, but what's happened and what could happen made me decide to do this. I earned some money by selling a few stories to television while I was in New York and by writing some articles. I used the money to buy an annuity that should last for 10 to 20 years. That's plenty of time. $1 million life insurance policy? You can get $1 million term life insurance policy if you're ready to pay enough, and I could pay for it for 15 or 20 years. After that, you and the kids will be okay. They'll be grown, and I trust you will have someone to support you. But for now, you and they won't have to worry about money. She shook her head. Bill, I'm not a big spender, Deb. What do I need the extra money for? I sold the rights and the interviews to take care of you and the kids. I'll be fine and won't worry about you or them. But how can you? The kids will each get $250,000 with you managing it until they turn 25. You will receive the rest, $500,000, because I don't think they can handle that much money yet. I know you love them, and you will look after them if I'm not around. I trust you to take care of them. She covered her mouth, as if she wanted to argue. Don't do this, Bill. Please don't do this. Let me keep a little pride. Stay distant with me, like you have been. Don't be so kind. I can't help it, Deb. I have cared for you for a long time, and a part of me will always care for you. Just keep the papers. I hope you can put them away in 20 years or so. I turned and walked to the door of her office. Bascom, are you all right? Yes, I'm fine, just thinking a lot, Debbie replied, forcing a smile as she headed toward the meeting room. She took a deep breath, trying to calm the overwhelming feelings inside her. As she entered the room, the air was filled with colleagues talking about upcoming projects. She took her seat, focused on the tasks ahead. Debbie pushed aside her old insurance papers and past troubles as she joined the conversations about new plans and deadlines. She reminded herself that this was a fresh start, a chance to focus on her life and career. The past was behind her, and it was time to welcome her future, whatever it might bring. After the meeting, she felt a new sense of purpose. She would put her energy into her work and create a new path away from the memories of her old relationship. As she left the office that day, she paused to appreciate the small achievements she had made and the strength she was building within herself. It was a step toward a better life, one she was ready to embrace fully. Bascom. Yes? The older woman looked at her with understanding and pointed gently. At first, Debbie thought she might have made a small mistake, but when she followed Helen's gaze, she realized her cheeks were wet. Thanks, she said, as she stepped back into her office. She wiped her face with tissues, checked her reflection in a compact mirror, and made sure she looked calm. A strong administrator couldn't walk around looking troubled. She took one last look at their photo. Their story was over. Now it was time to move forward. Though, I could reach out to him, if I really wanted to. I could. Then she stepped through the door into her new life.